Jay Crawford, Adam the Bull, Garrett Bush, Tyvis Powell, Jason Lloyd. Plus, ba-da-da-da-da, you're loving him, Mikey McNuggets. And so many big names, it would take me hours to say all of their names. The ultimate Cleveland sports show starts now. Booyah!
G. Bush is sick.
Jason's drunk.
Jason's in the witness protection program. He was the one.
I finally believed in you. I believed in you people. I picked you to go to the Super Bowl, and you lost in the first game. The first game. I picked you to go to the Super Bowl. Me, the guy who's dead inside. Who's dead inside?
Told you. I said on the show when you picked them, I haven't been shocked by anything else at a greater degree than you picking the Browns to go to the Super Bowl.
Never again. Never again. I'm
Even
done.
more than me throwing up on the air.
Well, that might be 1 and 1A. Hey, look, the sun came up. Life goes on, and you know the drill. Maybe next year. A lot to talk about today. But first, let's get the read out of the way, off the top, so we can dive into all of our topics. Go ahead, Mikey.
Yeah, obviously not the weekend we wanted, so we're going to dive right into it. 2 hours of Brown stuff. We're going to figure out what went wrong and everything else. But first, FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. If you want to bet on NFL teams that don't include the Cleveland Browns, you better be doing it on FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed just by placing a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose for new customers. And the best part about FanDuel, it is so easy to use. They have the live same-game parlays, which you can find in the new Explorer tab, or the Parlay Hub, which is by far the best and easiest way to find popular parlays and so much more. So make sure you visit FanDuel.com/UCSS to make your first bet a layup. FanDuel, an official partner of the NFL. And our guy Tyvis Powell won $432.58 this weekend on a 3-part same-game parlay, 3 different same-game parlays. He had the Pacers, Michael Porter Jr., and Nikola Jokic overs. He had Giannis unders, which is shocking.
Against Giannis?
That was the most surprising thing about the ticket to me.
And then he had Anthony Edwards, Kawhi over threes, Westbrook over rebounds, Leonard over threes, which all hit. So shout out to Tyvis for turning $10 into $430. If you have a winning ticket on FanDuel, make sure you tweet it at us. Send it to me on Twitter. But guys, let's get right into it.
By the way, I can't believe Giannis was held to the under. They scored like 300 points collectively, or damn near, almost 290.
That was weird.
So good on Tyvis for going against his heart.
His favorite player.
He thinks that Giannis starts every game with 30.
Yeah.
So somehow he made the right call. So congratulations to him. Now, what I want to know is how many of these he's played. Because in the text group to us, he said, I finally hit on one of these same-game parlays. So congrats to him. The Flacco fairy tale struck midnight, and it struck midnight in a very, very, like a thud. It arrived at about 5 o'clock or 5:30 Eastern time on Saturday. Bull, you really wanted to kind of give an opening statement.
Well, but I think you should go first, Jay, because you're the most diehard Browns fan here today. So I feel like you should go first.
Okay.
I know you weren't expecting that, but
that's fine. Yeah, I thought G would. I mean,
yeah.
G said Friday if they lose, he ain't coming in.
He is sick.
What's funny is it's Martin Luther King Day.
Yeah.
And everybody on the staff agreed we've got to do a show. You can't take Monday off. It could potentially be our biggest day ever.
Yeah.
If, of course, we all were predicting a win. So G, as the card-carrying black member of the on-air staff, said, I co-signed it.
Yeah.
You can work on MLK Day. Swervy Derv, he's not here.
Him and Earl.
He says he's hurt. We injured. He's got a stomach flu. Get well soon, G. But I can tell you this portion of it's not going to get better tomorrow. Disappointed for sure, but I hadn't quite bought in to the level of craziness and hype and excitement that I think a lot of Cleveland fans had. I had them winning in the first round and then losing in the next round anyhow, and I didn't care I didn't care who it was to. I just felt like, unless it was Pittsburgh, I just felt like they weren't going to go past one game anyhow. sometimes you get hung up in the results, and I think that's what happened to us here. We were intoxicated on the results, and we weren't looking at the journey exactly. There were things about the journey that we wildly overlooked, and I think we're all guilty of it. We said last week, Flacco's kill pill is the interception. It will be the fatal flaw of this team whenever this season ends. It will be because of his bugaboo, which he has never really been able to escape, and that's the interceptions. He fooled us in the regular season because he was able to do that. I think what happened with Joe, guys, is that the pressure of the moment finally got to him. He played so free and easy. He said in all the pregame interviews, this is fun, this is easy, there's no pressure. I do believe that he felt pressure, but I also believe that, and I have to give credit where credit is due, I think the Houston Texans coaching staff coached circles around all of the Browns coaches on Saturday, not just Kevin Stefanski. I thought Jim Schwartz was coaching with a bag over his head. I don't know where the adjustments were. They continued to gash us over and over and over again with the exact same kind of plays. So on my level of disappointment, if I have to, I think I was more disappointed a couple of years ago with the Kansas City loss, no question, because we were closer and we were at least in this game.
That game.
Yeah. I didn't expect we would get blown out. That was a complete surprise. But I had said last week, it's not going to surprise me if the Browns lose. One other thing, CJ Stroud is him. There is absolutely no question about that. He plays in the big moments. You either revert to who you are or you step up a notch. I think Joe Flacco reverted to who he was, and I think CJ Stroud stepped up a notch. Tremendous young player. I think I'm more disappointed about this, guys, than the actual loss itself. In watching this game, I watched assets that the Texans were able to acquire from a move that we made that we thought was going to put us on this track. And it may still end up that way, but 40% of the hay is in the barn, and right now it stinks. Can he resurrect that second half against Baltimore into a full season? Well, the answer has to be yes, because if he doesn't, this thing ends in a total dumpster fire disaster. But it was hard for me to watch assets that the Texans acquired through our picks beat us, and now they're here and we're here, and we've got Deshaun Watson for 3 more, and I hope it has a happier ending than it feels like it's going to have on this day.
Well, I wrote that after the game, and it did not make a lot of people happy.
People are killing you. I had to defend you on Twitter.
What did you write that people hated?
I wrote that the Texans used the Deshaun Watson trade to build themselves up and get back here.
That's not a lie.
And that
it's not. Now, the 2 most important pieces had nothing to do with that trade. That's Stroud and Collins.
CJ Stroud, yes.
Yeah.
But and I wrote that
CJ Stroud didn't play defense. Their defense crushed us.
I mean, I don't want to get too far down the path, but I wrote basically that the Browns, they traded you their franchise quarterback, and they made it back to the playoffs and won a playoff game and won their division before you did. It's embarrassing.
It is.
That's terribly embarrassing.
And look, I get this. I've learned this during the course of this show for sure. Fan bases more and more, because there's so much available for them to pick and choose for what they want to consume.
Yeah.
Fan bases don't want to hear the truth.
Well, yeah. I mean, sure.
And I've always known that.
That's the world.
It is. No, it is. But
politics.
And I've always known that, by the way. I've always known that. But I've been.
It's worse now.
It is far worse now.
Yeah.
That's the point I'm trying to make.
Because there's more options.
There's so many more options. There's so much information available. And we proved this when we asked the question, who's the best GM in Cleveland? And the winner of that question was Jimmy Haslam.
Owner, you mean?
Owner. I said GM. My bad.
Right. And that was before this season, I think.
That was before this season.
Oh, my God in heaven. I missed that day.
Oh.
I'd have thrown something through the TV.
I said at the time, the chat to me on that day, not individually, but I don't go there anyway, but collectively I said they've lost all credibility with me. Any credibility they had. And as we've continued to post polls, what I've noticed wins is what they want, not what they have.
Yeah.
And so I'm sorry that they attacked you.
Oh, I don't
will
care.
likely attack me.
I don't care.
I know you don't care, and neither do I. Skip Bayless always used to say, I'm here to tell the truth that you don't want to hear.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't want to hear the truth.
I mean, I have the bedside manner of a construction worker. I'm aware of that.
Yeah,
So
and
it is what it is. I don't really care.
I get it. I know you don't, and you wisely shouldn't even look at it if you were smart. I just think that in this day and age where we are, with so much information available, fans talk themselves into, oh yeah, we got this.
Yeah,
we're delusional. We're going to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think they're going to win, but I truly did think the Browns were going to get there. I really
and
did.
there were elements of your argument Friday that made sense.
Yeah.
On the surface, the defense had been playing like a championship defense. Here's what we ignored. And by the way, of all of the things that's happened this season, the most perplexing things to me is the difference from the defense home and away.
Yeah, and
I can't explain it.
I thought there was, my thoughts on the game, that was ultimately the biggest disappointment was how garbage the defense was.
Yes, agreed.
And yeah, Joe Flacco ultimately put the nail in the coffin with that first pick six.
He did.
But I blame the defense as a whole
100%
even more than I blame
couldn't
Joe
agree
Flacco.
more. I couldn't agree
Because
more.
their performance in the first half was embarrassing is not a bad enough word. I mean,
No.
it's embarrassing to call their defense embarrassing in the first half. That was as bad a defensive performance as I've ever seen in a half of football, especially considering what we thought. And it wasn't just us. You talk about the bias of media, fans, whatever. Across the country, even the people that picked, and the majority of the national media picked the Browns. There were certainly people that picked the Texans. I don't believe there's a single person that thought the Texans were going to win like that.
No.
Never.
No way.
No way you thought they'd win that way.
They won by 31 points.
The defense was disgusting. Every single member of that defense, not named JOK,
Right.
was hideous. Yes. Not a single other player on that defense played well. He was incredible. I mean, the only plays they made were him.
Yeah.
He looked like an all-pro.
Yeah.
By the way, there were 4 tackles for a loss by the Browns in this game. He had 3.
Yep.
The only one that wasn't him was the one where the guy got away from him in the backfield. And Tomlinson got the tackle. They were all 4 because of him.
Oh, was that still a tackle for a loss? Because I thought he got past the line of scrimmage on that play.
No, he didn't. He just got a little closer to the
Yeah,
line
it would have
of
been a 10-yard loss because
Right.
JOK was a heat-seeking missile.
He was a monster. The rest of the defense was disgusting. And the way the season ended, this was a fun season. It's hard to think about it now as a fun season.
You're right.
Because it ends in disgrace and embarrassment.
You're right.
The season was fun. We were able to enjoy the ride.
Mm-hmm.
It was a lot of fun. But when it ends like this, if they had lost a heartbreaker, last-second field goal to the Texans, we'd obviously all be disappointed.
Where they fought hard.
Right, but you wouldn't feel like this. I mean, this was beyond embarrassing.
Yeah.
It was disgusting.
Flacco in the first half.
Playing well.
15 to 19, 172 yards and a touchdown.
Yeah.
Quarterback rating 121. Like Flacco, the pick sixes were devastating. That's not
The
I
first,
want to
the
be
first
careful
one
how I say it.
especially, like, where was he
He was
from?
trying to throw it away, and it was terrible. The pick sixes are why they are a huge reason why they lost. Joe Flacco's not why they lost. The defense is why they lost. Does that make sense? Like I know
it does make sense, and I think we all agree with that.
Flacco was terrific in the first half. The first pick six was dreadful. It was the worst throw he's probably made. It was P.J. Walker-like. And he said he was trying to throw the ball away, and he just didn't have enough arm strength to get it there. The second pick
Should have
six,
just taken a sack on that.
probably.
Yes.
But the second pick six is because of the defense. Like, the defense was so bad, it put you in the position you have to go for it on 4th and a mile.
Right.
But you're down by so much because of the first pick six. It
Which
just became a
I saw
snowball
people
effect.
criticizing Stefanski for going for it there.
You're in
the
the
defense
playoffs.
has been terrible.
You're down
You have
17.
to go for
You're
it
down
there.
17 in the playoffs in the second half.
Yeah, exactly. So
you have to go for it there.
Quick, Mike needs to do another read, right? Is that what
Well,
it is?
yeah, I just want to ask because we're going down the next line here, which is totally fine. But if you're watching, we do appreciate you guys all the support all season. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Are you guys all blaming the defense then? If you're going to cut a slice of blame
Yes.
pie, is
Yes.
that definitely
Unquestionably.
90% of the
most blame?
blame for this goes on the defense, and parse it up however you want.
Yeah, I don't know if because I split mine between coaches, staff, defense, Flacco, everything. I even gave injuries 10% because if you're when the Browns had healthy tackles, their run game was very, very good. When they lost the tackles, their run game completely disappeared. And we've said this all season. When you're one-dimensional, you've got one foot in the L grave. You're halfway to cooked. The Browns, and I know that they were able to win in the regular season that way, but the playoffs are played completely differently, as we saw yesterday and earlier on Saturday. The playoffs are a different beast. And when the Browns couldn't establish a run game, it was easy for the Texans because they knew what the Browns were going to do, and they were able to stop it.
I blame more than anybody else, and I'm sure there's a lot of people up in arms, and I don't give a rat's ass. Myles Garrett, I blame more than anybody else on this team. He talks all the time. He wants to be defensive MVP, wants to be MVP, this and that. Meanwhile, he no-showed in this huge game, and after the game, he's like, well, we should have adjusted. I don't want to hear about that, Myles. Everybody has plenty of blame to give Jim Schwartz, fine. I don't want to hear that from Myles Garrett, guys. When that game is over, if you're the defensive player of the year, it's on me.
Yep.
I don't want to hear about double teams. I don't want to hear about nothing. When you're the best player, if you're the best defensive player in the league, you have to make an impact in the games that matter. And he made no impact. He did nothing in this game. Did he have any pressures, Mike?
He had three QB hurries.
That's not a pressure.
Then no.
No pressures. None. He had the one play where they threw the ball. It was nothing. He did nothing. He did not lead. He did not play great down the stretch. I don't give a rat's ass if he wins Defensive Player of the Year or not.
I hope he does it now.
He sucked in this game. He was and so was Micah Parsons, by the way. He sucked for Dallas, too.
Yes, he did.
I don't care. He was terrible. I don't care what his pass rush grade is. I don't care about his PFF grade. I don't care what it was. He was terrible, and the team feeds off of him. He did nothing, and they did nothing. The only player that played was J.O.K. Garrett sucked, and he's the leader of that defense. I'm not blaming Jim Schwartz for it all. You want to blame him? Fine. Myles Garrett, to me, is more to blame than anybody else.
And my criticism of him for a long time has been he doesn't seem, and I'm not saying he doesn't make big plays. He does at big moments. But to me, if I'm going to use a baseball analogy, he's the guy who hits a 3-run home run when you're down 9-1 in the 6th. It doesn't do much for me in that situation. And this team, and this is an overall picture, but he's partly to blame for this. What is this team missing? It's missing fire and brimstone. And I say that because when I was watching the Rams and the Lions last night, I thought, if there's any coach that I would take right now in the NFL, it would be Dan Campbell. He is fiery. His players respond to him. He has the ultimate belief in his players.
I'm laughing, by the way, because he takes the points less than anybody.
I don't love that about him. By the way, the reason he does it is because he's got a great offense. His offense,
for a quarterback that a lot of people have given up on,
and honestly, is playing at an MVP type level.
By the way,
didn't get the credit this year that he deserved.
By the way, only Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes have more postseason wins, quarterbacks under 30, than Jared Goff. He's tied with Jared.
Stunning.
He's tied with Josh Allen for third most under 30.
What impressed me most watching that game was there was fire on both sidelines.
Oh yeah, sure.
And look, I know that to me the Tom Landry top hat, arms folded, never shows emotion. That's good. In the 1970s. In today's NFL, I just feel, and that's why I think Campbell and McVay are both so successful and their teams love them. That game was one play. I thought that holding play cost the Rams the game last night, that holding penalty. You could, ticky-tack, maybe, was it a holding? It happened to be on a player who makes a difference in big games. Mm-hmm. And so he got the flag. But it put them back 10 yards. And they had to punt, and that was it. They couldn't get the ball back. I love the emotion. I know that Jim Schwartz is kind of that guy, but he's not the head coach. And his defense can rally around that, but for some reason, the big knock on Myles all along is he's not the leader type. He's not the leader type. I'm sorry. When you're the best player on your team, you better learn how to lead. And it better be vocal and not through your actions. I want a Ray Lewis coming through the tunnel with the antics and getting everybody on their feet. I want a Ray Lewis in the huddle on the sidelines after a 90-yard drive, ripping every single guy on the defense a new one because they probably need it. And this team doesn't have that. They don't have it at the head coach. They don't have it as an offensive leader. They don't have it as a defensive leader. And I thought Houston, Ryan's funny. He's not that guy, but his players love him. And I think they have players on the team that will take that leadership role. But here's my fear. Stefanski's going to win Coach of the Year, and Myles Garrett's going to win Defensive Player of the Year. That's my fear.
Listen,
neither deserve it.
Well, I still think Kevin Stefanski deserves it. It's a regular season award.
Yeah, but he went up against the guy who he's a finalist with and got boat raced out coach.
I hear you. I think in the end he had a much better quarterback that played a role. I still think Kevin Stefanski's a very good coach. I'm not going to change my mind on Kevin Stefanski based on one game.
He is 0-2 in the playoffs.
He does get a ding for it. There's no doubt. I mean, there's got to be criticism. He's got to win in the playoffs sometime in the next couple of years.
Correct.
I'm certainly not replacing him right now.
Right.
But he's got to win in the next 2 years. I mean, he's got to win there. Otherwise, you got to move on because eventually you got to win in the playoffs. You know, Marvin Lewis won a lot of regular season games, and I like that as a Bengals fan because they had been bad before Marvin.
But he got
Lewis.
to the point
it was
where
great,
0-4.
but eventually he kept losing in the playoffs early, and I was like, well, you got to move on.
Yeah.
And so same thing here. I'm not nearly at that point with Stefanski, and I get it. You know, we were lauding him for his staying calm all year and not being too emotional. I thought Dan Campbell. I like Dan Campbell. He's grown on me. I thought he cost them the game against Dallas because he was too emotional in that game, and that could happen too. So kudos to Dan Campbell. I don't want to. For me, I'm not interested in. Listen, Stefanski deserves blame. He's the head coach. He deserves some blame too, no doubt about it. But not to the point where I'm going to fire him after.
No, I don't think there are some that want him fired. I think that's silly.
Yeah,
that's just silly.
You can't pretend to be something you're not. And when you talk about being the fiery, emotional guy, that's not Kevin and that's not Myles.
Then the Browns better draft some.
Well, I don't want them to pretend to be something they're not because you're really going to get in trouble if you start going down those types of roads. I've said from day one with Myles, if you want to lead, then lead. And, people want to throw tomatoes at me for the OTAs thing. And I'm not saying that has anything to do with Sarah. Right. Obviously, it does not. But I go back to the conversation I had with him where he watched The Last Dance and he loved it. And he was mesmerized by Michael and he was mesmerized by the way that he led and he wanted to lead. So if you're going to lead, lead. That means showing up to everything. That means taking the blame at the podium on Saturday. Right. Like you said, stand there and saying, I wasn't good enough, that's on me. You don't skirt the blame. Greg Newsome did the same thing. You stand up there and you say,
it wasn't a good look.
I wasn't good enough.
For either one of them.
I wasn't good enough. Put this on me. That's what you do as a leader.
That's right.
And then you go out the next time and you're better. And, throughout the whole second half of the season, and I still think this is true. I don't want to get lost in the emotion of a loss where you say, well, Myles has doubled more than anybody else, and look at the advanced metrics. Those are all true. That's still true. What's also still true is that the numbers still went down. Whether it was the shoulder, whether it was something else, I've said in the past, I felt like there's nothing left to play for in Cleveland by the time you get to December. It's just hard to keep yourself engaged. That certainly wasn't the case this year. We don't know how much the shoulder had to do with it, if it really was the injury. Whatever the reason is, right there's the evidence. Mike's got it on the screen, and it happened again this year, whereas the season went on the last few weeks, the numbers didn't support everything else.
He's the best player in football in September and October.
That doesn't do you much good.
That's not enough. That's not good enough.
And that might be why he's a great player on a team that's had no playoff success.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt. What's weird is we talked about how this team had been so soft forever. This year felt like they were a tough team. They were a different team, and they didn't look tough at all. They looked completely soft in this game.
I couldn't believe how slow they looked defensively in that entire game. Brevin Jordan, the backup tight end, is running away from people. How does he go,
what was it, 80 yards?
76 yards.
I did find out real quick on Jordan, he played running back for most of his life and was too big to play running back in the NFL. So it's not like this is just...
He should never go 76 yards on anybody's defense.
I agree, but he's definitely not the normal speed of a tight end.
I understand that, but I'm sorry, he shouldn't go 76 yards.
Looked like guys were jogging.
The Browns had the lead. Both times they took the lead, they had it for like a minute.
Yeah.
And they just gave it right back.
They had the lead twice in this game,
They
believe it or not.
talked about it briefly in the telecast, and I was glad they did because it's something that I've noticed during the course of the year at times. I thought Indy used it very, very well to their advantage. We are a fly-to-the-football defense. That's Jim Schwartz's style. I understand that. But when you get away from discipline, assignment-oriented defense, this is what happens. You get gashed for huge plays, and they said it on the telecast, and I was glad they did. What the Texans did, I thought the Colts did it very, very well. I thought the Seahawks did it early against the Browns and then for some reason went away from it.
The Rams did too.
The Rams definitely used it. Now, the Rams do that against everybody, but the Rams absolutely exploited this about the Browns. Get the flow going one way, and you got 11 orange helmets coming.
Yeah.
And then the left side of the field or the right side of the field, whichever one, is wide open. And what stunned me, and I think this might be what Myles was talking about, they didn't change it. Like, I think Jim was like, this is the hand I'm holding, and I think we can win with this. And the Texans just kept saying, okay, if you're going to buy these misdirection fakes, good luck to you.
Yeah.
We're going to burn you the other way. And they did it time and time and time and time again.
But
they saw that, I think, in the Rams tape.
Right.
And they said, okay, that's the blueprint to beat these guys.
But ultimately, they couldn't get any pressure, and they couldn't cover. And those are two things they did well all year, was get pressure and cover.
Yeah.
They couldn't do either.
How do you explain it's the biggest point differential allowed, home and away, in the NFL since 1982?
I can't explain.
Someone jokingly put in the text, it's almost like they're cheating at all.
I said that. I said, are they
Now listen,
cheating? I don't know.
I'm not going to point any
No,
allegations.
I don't know, but-
I'm not going to, because it's pretty much impossible to cheat unless somehow you're doing what I'm told is impossible, and that's stealing the other team's communication channel.
I think there's some, two of the games, I think we have to do a deep dive into it to see if we can find something.
And we're going to do that, by the way, Bull. I'm on it. I got my best guy, a.k.a. me.
Okay. I know two of the games where Denzel Ward didn't play and their secondary just got torched. But, maybe...
I don't think that there's not one answer.
No.
I think it's a multiple.
But there's something.
It's a little bit here and a little bit there.
Because it's not, look, if it was 2 games at home and 2 games on the road, that's an anomaly.
Yeah.
But when you're 8-1 at home and you're allowing 17 points a game, fewer
14.
than you are on the road.
Oh, yeah, right.
And you're 3-6 on the road, that's not an anomaly. That is a trend. That is baked into the DNA of this team. And I don't know how else to explain it. Our crowd's good. Detroit's crowd last night was unbelievable.
Yeah, it's not just the crowd.
It can't just be the crowd.
That plays a small role in it, sure, but...
Mary Kay mentioned last night, we were on, Mary Kay and I did Nick on Sports
Channel
Tonight.
3's wrap-up show.
Channel 3's wrap-up show, thank you. And Mary Kay said, she thought something had to do with the fact that, look at the quarterbacks that the Browns played at home versus on the road. And I think there's a little bit of merit to that. Burrow was hurt at home.
Maybe.
Clayton Tune was here. Simeon was here. They had a lot of lower-end quarterbacks at home, and they had, Lamar
They also
Jackson.
had Brock Purdy at home.
They did have Brock Purdy at home. That was like the last really good one that I went back and saw.
McCaffrey and he lost.
There were some injuries there. And that's why I'm saying there's not just one definitive answer, or else the Browns would have figured it out and solved it. When Trevor Lawrence was here, he was beat up and on one leg, and although he played better than I thought that he would, he moved better than I thought that he would here. But I don't think that there's one specific answer of this is why.
Right.
Because the Browns are well aware of it too. And Kevin was asked about it yesterday. He's like, you got to give me some time on that one. Like, we got to pull that apart and look at that.
I think the
I'm
real
glad
question,
that was his answer.
Guys, I think the real question for the offseason is which is the real defense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
And we'll talk
probably
about
somewhere in
well,
between.
That is the question because
But that's
Bull,
what we
the
need
one
to know.
thing that we said that the hardest thing to carry over, it's like the bullpen in baseball.
Yeah.
Defense doesn't always transition year to year. A good offense oftentimes does. But I don't know what we have on defense, and that's troubling because we thought that side of the ball was healthy. That,
It was.
For the most part, the injuries happened on the offensive side.
Yeah.
So that side of the ball was healthy. They had been playing well. And, I think there is something to that. The Jets at home, okay, they're middling. They're bad. You're supposed to beat up on them. I think they had Jacksonville at home, or were they on the road? They had Jacksonville at home, and Lawrence he played, but he wasn't Lawrence, and hadn't been even after the injury. So maybe there is something to that. But you're right. I don't know what the hell we have now on that side of the ball, because the taste in our mouth that will not wash out in this offseason is we got cooked by a rookie in the playoffs giving up 45 points. Now, I know 14 of those were on pick sixes, but my God, I don't know what we have on it. And by the way, before you go, Mike, one thing that really rubbed me the wrong way, and maybe I'm just being too critical, it was not a good look for Andrew Berry to be standing at the entrance of the locker room, dabbing everybody up. Good job, great season. I just thought that was bad looks. I
didn't see that.
I
saw
that.
it.
I had nothing wrong with
Yeah, I didn't have an issue
I
with
just
that.
thought it was. I don't know.
That's the totality of the season, and thanking guys for
I
their
get
effort
that.
through the
There's
year.
a time and place for that. I don't think after you look like that,
Yeah.
I don't know how anybody can give you congratulations
Well-
and flowers. I know it was for the season and not for the game. Just didn't sit well with me.
What I thought was ridiculous was Juan Thornhill yesterday saying, well, imagine how good we're going to be next year on defense.
Is he even back?
I mean, he's been one of the biggest disappointments on their defense.
And I don't know how. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Oh, we're going to be so good next year. Okay, maybe.
Why better next year?
I mean, the point is they have the system now for a year. A lot of the same guys.
Let me ask you this before Mikey goes, real quick. You guys can give an answer because we don't know what they are. Is this defense more the one that played the home games, the 9 home games, or the one that played the 9 road games?
I think it's.
I think it's closer to the home,
I
but I don't
agree.
think it's the home. I don't think it's that good, but I think it's closer to that. I'd say if you stuck a needle in between, I'd say it's on the
Closer
good,
to home.
the good side of the needle.
They're
but-
better. They're better than they are bad. I
Yeah,
absolutely
I
believe
think.
they're better than they are bad.
Yeah.
All right. I hope
We'll
I
dive
hope
into
that's
that a
true.
little
I
more
don't-
tomorrow,
I
but
don't know.
quick, before we get to Joe Flacco and his ultimate demise here, even though it wasn't necessarily his fault, the NFL season may have wrapped up, but there's still time to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. When you place a $5 bet, that's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose for new customers. The app is easy to use, and there are so many different ways to bet, including live same-game parlays. You can find bets in the new Explorer tab. You can make a parlay in the Parlay Hub, which is the best way to find popular parlays, and much, much more. So make sure you visit FanDuel.com/UCSS to make your first bet a layup. FanDuel, an official partner of the NFL. Guys, Joe Flacco, Jay, you called it the magic carpet ride he had been on, came to a end this past weekend. Not his worst game ever, but his worst game in a Browns uniform. Are you surprised more of the timing that it happened when we all expected Joe Flacco to play his best considering his postseason experience more than the actual result itself? Jason, you want to start with that? Are you surprised that this is when Flacco's return to reality game happened?
I mean, yeah, I thought they were going to the Super Bowl, but also I think it's really important to stress, like, he had 2 bad throws, and they were really bad throws, but I really don't think Flacco played all that terrible. Like, go back and, again, look at the first half. He had a terrific first half. It was overshadowed a little bit by what they did defensively in the second, or in how many points they were giving up. But the worst throw was the first pick six. And we talked about, I already mentioned, he thought he was trying to get it out of bounds. He was trying to throw it away, and he just didn't have the arm strength to do it, and it was a horrible throw. The second pick six was, to me, more a result of just the, normally you'd punt that away. It's 4th and long. Early third quarter, you punt that away, or mid-third quarter, I guess, by that point. Mm-hmm. But because the situation of the game, because you're down 17 and you're running out of possessions and you can't stop them on the other side, you have to go for it. I don't think that's a bad decision at all to go for that. But it's a 4th down play, and now you're trying to force something. Now it's just got to have it. You got to try and get something out of it. Certainly can't take a sack there, and then look what happens. It's a second pick six. So I don't think, yes, like, it all came crashing back to earth. Yes, it did. But I still don't think that he was like this terrible, awful performance out of him. I thought he was still pretty good, actually.
I did too.
He was great in the first half.
Yeah.
He was great. However, that's not good enough. And the bottom line is, yes, I blame Myles Garrett, I blame the defense way more than I blame Joe Flacco. But we can't just say it's 2 throws, because that first pick six was it. That was game over.
I didn't think it was.
Oh, come on now.
I didn't. The second one was. I didn't think the first one was.
I thought the first pick six made the score what? 30?
17. They're down 17.
They were down 17.
Yeah. They were down 10.
24-10, and then
In the
pick
third
six
quarter.
made it
Right.
31.
Right,
The
they were
reason
down
I
10.
felt it was over is because, and I could be wrong, but this is what Joe Flacco was probably thinking.
Yeah.
The defense wasn't going to stop Houston.
No.
And I agree with you 100%. We say all picks aren't created equal. Yes, you can't ignore the 2 in his stat line. You can't. It jumps out at you. However, I think you put an asterisk next to them and you say they were a result of no running game, none, and the fact that Joe knew he couldn't have a possession in which he didn't score.
I don't think the first one he gets zero pass. From
First
me on
one
that
is
first.
all
no
him.
pass.
It is all on him.
I'm not saying there's a pass. I'm saying what's going on in his mind is we can't punt or we lose.
Right, but here's the deal. With that first interception, okay, as awful as the defense was in the first half, they stopped him 3 and out on that first drive in the second half. He had the ball already in field goal range or borderline field goal range.
36-yard line. That's
okay,
field goal
well,
range.
it probably
With
needed
this
another
guy,
10 yards.
yes, with
but
this
they
guy.
were borderline field goal range. Down 10. Browns score there, even if it's a field goal, it's a different game.
I totally agree.
And you want to, I mean, listen, to me, that pick six, the game was over. That took the life out of the team, and they completely cratered after that.
But
you want to blame the defense for the second interception? Listen, he still made the throw.
Let me give you a scenario now, okay? He plays, because there's 2 games going on. We all know this. There's the game going on when the Browns have the ball, and there's the game going on when the Texans have the ball. The one thing that shocked all of us was the defense was absolutely abysmal. Let's just say, for the sake of this discussion, that the defense played up to its ability, or what we thought they would do, and it's 17-3 Browns at halftime. That changes everything. It changes the way you look at the game. Now you can say, let's make it a field possession game, put it in the hand of our capable elite defense, and we don't have to take chances.
It doesn't matter. Sometimes you're down. That's part of the NFL.
I know it.
And the good quarterbacks make
that.
plays. Joe Flacco was not good enough. That's the bottom line.
Listen, nobody said he was, and I think we all are in agreement here.
Yeah.
He had a lot to do with the Browns losing this game.
Yes.
What we're saying is, what I'm saying, and I think you are too, is if you, at halftime, I felt really good about our offense. I'm like, you know what? They're not going to be able to stop us either. We can't really stop them, but they're not going to be able to stop us. And I felt good about that. But the defense, every time they took the field, they were getting gashed one play after another. It was almost like CJ Stroud was the 16-year vet. He just played up to the level that I was afraid he could.
In the end, when he had the ball there, that first possession of the third quarter, the defense had just made a stop, and they were only down 10. It wasn't panic time there. They were very much in the game right there.
It wasn't panic time.
And I remember I told Zach in the press box, Jack, and I talked to players after the game who felt the exact same thing. Just get points out of this drive.
Right.
You're down 10.
That's it.
Just get points.
And
get
that was
a little
an
bit of rhythm.
all-time bad
get some momentum.
decision.
Yes, it was. But even at down 17, I guess the point I'm making is if they come back and hit a big play and cut it back to 10, you still think they're in the game. So 17 didn't feel like the end to me. 24 was the end. The second pick six, it was over. I still didn't think it was over.
And that was still a terrible throw by him.
It was, but it's a fourth down. He's under pressure. It's 4th and long. Like, I don't blame him.
I'm not giving any quarterback a pass in that situation. You've got to make the play. I know it's a tough spot.
What do you want? I'd love to see that play again. Like, what do you want him to do? It's 4th and forever.
Yeah.
You're under pressure. It was 15.
It was 4th and 2.
No.
Yeah,
it was.
It was 3rd and 1. They got stuffed on the short yardage.
That's right. It was 4th and nothing.
All right, I take it back then. I thought it was like 4th and 15.
I think later they went for a 4th and long, but the game was already over.
The pick six came on 4th and 2.
That was a 4th and 2. He's got to make
right.
that play.
Then
He got a bad throw.
Then I had the wrong
Joe
play in
Flacco gets no pass. Listen,
I'm not trying to give him a
despite
pass.
throwing an absurd amount of picks in the last 5 weeks, we gave him a pass for all of it because they won.
Yep.
So he gets no pass. They
lost.
lost.
I think we also were of the mindset that that's how this is going to end. We all said it Friday. This magic carpet ride
If it
will
ends,
end
this is how it
with
ends.
Joe Flacco interception.
Right,
and
and
that's
ultimately,
exactly how it ended.
The picks wouldn't have killed him if the defense were terrible. But the defense had 5, and who knows if the defense had a 3 and out to start the second half. If Joe Flacco would have marched them down, not throwing that pick, and they would have gotten at least 3 points. Maybe the defense is. We've seen this defense play a bad quarter, not a bad half like that, but a bad quarter and turn it around.
Seattle.
The defense might have played a great second half. If they had scored, it would have been a one-possession game. It could have been a totally different game. We'll never know. But Joe Flacco, to me, failed in this game. He played great in the first half. He was trash in the second half when they needed him most.
What percentage of blame do you give Joe and do you give the defense?
I give the defense 90% of the blame.
Yeah, I know you said 90%.
I give the defense 75.
I give them 60. It
Wow,
was
you
so
give me even more.
inexplicable. Well,
less.
I spread mine out all over the place.
Yeah.
I give him
there's
60.
plenty
I give
of blame
Joe
to go
20.
around.
I think injuries. And we talked about them, and we were relatively healthy. But to me, the two injuries that we didn't talk enough about during the year, and the reason we didn't was because our interior three of that offensive line had been so good that we just kept it was like smoke and mirrors. But the lack of good tackles is going to cost you at some point. And to me, it was like two flashing lights on each side of that line. They were horrible. They weren't blocking anybody. Joe had pressure in his face all day, and the run game, once again, was completely invisible.
I don't give any pass to injury at all. Injury's a part of the game. The Browns had a lot. We talked about it all year. We said how remarkable the season was that they did as well with injuries.
Yep.
I'm not giving them a pass for injuries. If we're going to blame
there's no pass, I'm giving blame. I'm not saying there's no pass. I mean, they didn't get injured on purpose. You got injured. But at some point, the injuries take a toll.
I mean, it's not like Jedrick Wills was any good at left tackle.
Would you have taken him the last 6 games of the season?
I don't know.
Because we all agreed when he went out, now he's playing well, now he's hurt.
Yeah, I don't know.
He had turned the season
I don't
around.
think the difference between Garrett Christian and Jed Wills was why they lost.
At one point, I stopped watching the game because it wasn't entertaining.
Yeah, I was watching it on mute.
And I was I don't mean I turned it off. I stopped watching the action, and I was just looking at the point of attack. Because we talked about this after the Michigan game and how they rode their dominant offensive and defensive lines to a championship. And oftentimes, that's the point of attack. You've got to win there. I just started watching the offensive line. And it was amazing to me how many breakdowns there were on every single play.
Well, the offensive line is a big issue going forward. They are spending, I don't know this for sure, but my guess is they're spending more on the offensive line than any team in the league. Without a doubt, it's got to be top 5. And yet, they're old, they're injury prone, and they're good, but not great, and not good at all at tackle.
It's a concern. I don't know how far down the rabbit hole Mike wants
we're
us
going to talk more about that tomorrow.
But I will just say that, and you're committed to these guys. Once you rework a contract, you're pretty much married to that guy. They reworked both Joel and Wyatt last offseason. Joel had a ton of injuries this year.
Conklin got the extension.
I don't know if he'll ever play again. You're on the hook for $15 million for Wills for next year. So there's not a lot of outs here. And DeJuan Jones was far better than I think we thought that he could be as a 4th-round pick. I said all along it wasn't the physical ability, it was the maturity level. Well, he grew up quite a bit as the year went on as he was out there. But the question now is, when he's massive, can his frame hold up over an NFL season?
Sure. Can
his knees support how big he is over an NFL? So there's a lot of concerns with that offensive line. Wyatt hurt himself again in this game.
Antonio.
Joel it's incredible that Joel, I was talking to Joel after the game, the fact that he played through that game with a high ankle sprain was unbelievable. So, and he just said, all year long it was something. It was a back, it was a finger, it was.
Well, he's at that age.
He's getting older.
He's at that age. And as much as we love him and what he does, and he's still a Pro Bowl caliber player, the one thing that you have to look at when you're putting a team together is, how reliable are these players? And there were a lot of players on this team that weren't available this year. Now, not all of them were age-related, but there were some of it was age-related.
Well, for Joel and Wyatt, the guards particularly, to play through some of the stuff that they went through this year and some of the injuries they had.
Yeah.
Mike said, I was texting with Mike and Bull yesterday. These guys are warriors, man.
Yeah.
No doubt.
The way that these guys I remember I talked to Wyatt the one time. He's like, I can't leave the game. No matter what happens. When they were really out of alignment, he's like, it was basically down to him. He said, it doesn't matter what happens to me. I can't leave. I have to stay in the game.
One of the things that Mike wanted to discuss this morning, and I'm glad that it's on the list, is we had made a big deal about playoff experience. How important it was that Joe Flacco had this mountain of playoff experience, and how because CJ Stroud had none of it at the NFL level, even though he played in some very big games in college, that wasn't going to translate. Do we look at that aspect of all of this differently 48 hours after the fact?
No, I don't. I'm not going to
either.
Not because of one game. And Stroud's numbers were terrific, and he played great, and all credit to him. He was
special.
Great. I'm not taking anything away from it. The only point I'm making is the Browns didn't make it very hard on him. He was never under pressure. He was throwing to wide open guys. It's never that he had to fit tough passes into tight windows. It was 35 yards to Dalton Schultz.
Throw that he
Nico
made,
Collins.
You got to give him credit for that. That was He threw that ball 25 feet in the air.
He was throwing to guys who were wide open.
By the way,
the
the first
part.
half could have been worse. He overthrew somebody.
Dalton Schultz was
Dalton
wide
Schultz
open.
dropped that one ball.
Yeah.
Wide
open.
open.
Was it Noah Brown on a deep pass? He was wide open.
It was Nico Collins.
Oh, well, that was Nico Collins also. Yeah, listen, Nico Collins is way better. He's better than I thought he was.
And Singletary played better than you expected, too.
Singleton played very well. I said he played well down the stretch. I thought the Browns would stop him, but they didn't. Singleton played great down the stretch. Collins was fantastic. The Texans deserve a lot of credit.
Yes.
They kicked the Browns' ass across the board.
Yes.
Tons of credit to them. I'm not changing. Yes, it's in general, experience matters. In general, experience is a benefit. In this case, it didn't matter. There's exceptions to every rule.
Jay, you're not any more impressed with CJ Stroud after what you
he's
saw
terrific.
Saturday? No, I know, but you were like, he did what any quarterback could do. He threw to open guys. He didn't play above your expectations at all?
Going back to the original question, did you change your mind on experience? No, I don't. I still think experience matters. I think CJ played great. I think he's a very special quarterback. I'm not taking anything away from him. The only point I'm making is the Browns didn't exactly make life hard on him. At what point did they have him under pressure? At what point did they have him feeling them? At what point did they have him making really hard throws into tight coverage?
There were a couple times where he had to step up in the pocket, move, but not much.
For the most part, I thought he just did whatever he wanted to do back there. And that was disappointing to see from the Browns side. And I'm not saying he couldn't do it under pressure. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying from what we saw, Browns didn't make life very hard on CJ Stroud.
The Texans, or are they done?
Oh, they definitely could win another. Why not?
Yeah, sure. They could.
We don't know who's left, obviously. The Pittsburgh game is tonight, Pittsburgh-Buffalo.
No, there's no reason they couldn't win again. I mean, Baltimore's a better team if they play Baltimore. So I think the other teams are better.
They're likely going on. They're likely going on the road now.
Yeah,
a dome team going outside.
Yeah.
We'll see what the weather's like if it's Buffalo or.
No, they're definitely going on the road because Kansas City already won. They're either going to Buffalo, Kansas City, or
Buffalo, Kansas City, or Baltimore.
Or Baltimore, one of those three places.
Yeah. So, they could. I don't know that I would pick them to win again. I just think, the Browns I was so disappointed in the Browns in the effort. Guys were jogging on defense. Backup tight ends, I don't care who they are. Backup tight ends should not be running away from you for 76
I didn't know who number 9 was.
That's pitiful.
We'd talk about him all week.
That's
By the way,
embarrassing.
the Browns' backup tight end had a big play. Harrison Bryant.
Bryant.
Big play.
Down the goal line.
Who played well? JOK, Njoku,
David Bell.
David Bell, and Harrison Bryant.
I thought, even though his yards per carry weren't great, I thought Hunt came with his construction hat. He ran hard. He got the tough yards. He scored the 2 touchdowns.
Hey, he's found a role for himself. He's a short yardage back. He can't do anything else.
No, but I love.
Don't say that.
No, he can't.
Oh,
he can't
don't
do
say
anything
that.
else. But he's very good at that short yardage goal line role.
Because of his heart. I think it's because of his heart. You know who impressed me? Who impressed you most? I know there's time for us to talk about it later. But was there one player that impressed you more than any other?
JOK and
not in that game. All the playoff games so far.
All the playoff games. Jordan Love.
Jordan Love was great. To me, I was already impressed with him. I was already on board. This Puka Nacua is unbelievable.
Yeah, he had a great game last night.
He plays at a 5th gear speed all the time.
Yeah, but people were giving up on Jordan Love, and the guy's maybe been the best quarterback in football since December.
Yeah, I was going to say, Jordan Love had a really nice season.
Yeah.
I think
in the beginning of the year, people were saying he was a bust.
What was the biggest surprise overall for you? Was it the Browns?
The Browns.
Because I normally would say the Browns. To me, the Cowboys,
45-14.
The Cowboys being down 27-0 at home was I didn't know what I was looking at.
No, the Packers winning the way they did was a much bigger surprise.
I thought it was.
The Cowboys were a much bigger favorite than the Browns were, and the Browns were on the road.
To lose 45-14, I know they were on the road
but
a
the
lot.
Packers won by a huge number too.
We'll come back to that. There's a lot on that bone. Not just this, but I thought in general the playoff games. And if there's time, we'll talk about the 2 games today.
There's only been one good
today
game so far,
and one tonight. Yeah, you're right. The playoffs in general have been pigs.
The first 3 games.
Last night's game was really, really, really good.
Great.
Yeah.
But the first 3 were absolutely unwatchable.
Yeah.
We'll get back to the Browns in 1 sec. There's no barbershop today. G. Bush is sick, which means he is resting his voice, so no barbershop today. Keep that in mind. But we'll have a barbershop later in the week. We'll have Behind the Glass.
Did anybody check in on him Saturday? I was worried about you.
Yeah, he did the postgame show. He was very open and adamant about the Texans absolutely beating the crap out of the Browns in every facet of the game, offensively, defensively, special teams, coaching, you name it. And he was very He took his lumps on the chin. He said he knows, and we know that his comments on Monday about the library card and stuff got back to the Texans locker room. He was willing to eat it. He had receipts and actually read a few on the postgame show. So if you missed it, feel free to go back and watch. But G has the stomach bug. He sent us a doctor's note, so no.
Who did he blame most?
Jim Schwartz.
Jim Schwartz?
He was most on Jim Schwartz for just being completely
That's fair.
outmatched and outclassed. And Bobby Slovic, the Texans' offensive coordinator, is going to get head coaching jobs.
Oh, he's a head coach by February.
But
and his schemes
again, that's crazy.
Completely
That you're a head coach because you're a good play caller. It doesn't make any sense.
I will say this, though, and you've probably heard this, too. Folks were high on him before what he's done here.
Yeah.
He comes from that ridiculous Washington coaching tree
under
Mike Shanahan that has produced 4 or 5, not just head coaches, but great head coaches.
Unlike the rotten Belichick
tree.
Yeah, Belichick can't even. His coaches get fired when. Belichick to Dallas.
By the way, I hope he does because there's no way those two can coexist.
Who?
Belichick and Jerry Jones?
Oh, okay. I didn't think. I didn't even.
Yeah, there's
heard my
no way
question.
they could coexist.
Yeah,
and it's
yeah,
going to
yeah.
be a disaster. So I hope it happens.
They said yesterday, and I didn't know this to be true.
Yeah.
I'd never seen it personally, but somebody had said it might have been Tirico or someone over the weekend. No, it was Joe Buck. Said that they each have tremendous respect for one another and have had a great relationship for decades. Now, you don't hire your friends and you don't hire your family.
And he ran out the only good coach he had, who won him his championship, Jimmy Johnson.
He fired Tom Landry, Jimmy Johnson, and Barry Switzer.
Yeah, I didn't think,
not that Barry Switzer is that great, but he did win
but Barry
at the
Switzer
college level
trained
and the
Johnson's
NFL.
team.
Yeah, but
Barry Switzer's Larry Coker. They're one and the same.
You know what?
And
That's a really
anyway.
really good analogy. Although he won it in college, he was great.
Yeah.
And that was his.
Yeah.
We'll talk some
when Larry
other
Coker
NFL
was at
stuff
Miami, that
towards
wasn't
the
his.
end in overtime, guys. We'll spend 5 minutes on this, then we'll move on. But real quick, we spent all of the week leading up to the Texans game and all the week leading up to the Bengals game saying it was the right move to sit players. I was the one arguing to play Flacco.
He's trying to take a victory lap now.
I'm not. No, I'm actually not. But I'm asking because Flacco didn't come out rusty, and the defense it waited till the second half to fall apart. But in hindsight, and obviously we have the results now, so it's easy to play the results game. But knowing what we know how it ended, do you still think it was the right move to sit everybody in Week 18, or do you think it did throw off the rhythm?
Yeah,
this could be a 3-minute discussion. We can move on after, but quickly,
Do you guys?
No, I don't think it had anything to do. I think it's a coincidence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
I mean, the Chiefs sat their guys, didn't they, the last week?
Yeah.
everybody does. When you have nothing left to play for, everybody sits
Well,
their
the
guys.
Lions had really no reason to play because the outcomes of the other two games that they needed were almost never going to happen.
But they did play, guys.
And they got a key player hurt.
Although he played.
He did, but
they were lucky.
He's carrying
He scored a
an injury
touchdown.
now that he didn't
Well, can you
need to
imagine?
get.
Can you imagine if Denzel Ward got a concussion against Cincinnati? Like we would have
would've killed
destroyed
him for
him.
that.
We destroyed
We
him.
would be killing everybody in the organization for that today. And
Absolutely.
by the way, Joe Flacco, to me, came out looking great. He didn't look rusty.
The bad play
So,
came in the second half. So.
You know, and of all the things you can say that why the defense sucked, rust isn't in my top 10.
No.
That's ridiculous.
I mean, there were a lot of reasons why they were awful.
That would be giving them an excuse they don't deserve.
They don't deserve it.
And again, like if it was a bad thing to rest guys, then they wouldn't give teams a first-round bye. They'd make them play. You know, if you're a first-round
Right,
seed,
teams
you'd want
want
to play.
rest.
Sure.
You want to rest, especially at this point in the season.
Yeah.
The best thing you can do is get these guys off their feet. I told you. Joel told me that's the best he's felt since week 1 because he had the
Right.
week off against Cincinnati.
Right.
So
Until he got hurt again.
and then he got hurt again.
Yeah.
He said
it
bad luck.
It hit him just right. Like
Yeah.
they rolled into him. It
You
got
know,
It
him
looked
just right.
bad. I mean,
I didn't think it was awful. You could see it was the ankle. His foot was
I
planted.
thought it was his back at first, live, because
Well,
just the way
because he
that
had the
dropped.
back already.
Yeah.
Yeah. Boy,
I
there
didn't-
was a hit in the Lions-Rams game.
He tore his knee, tore his ACL.
And I'm telling you, and I'm really glad that they talked about it. It was Collinsworth said, you know, he's talked to over 200 receivers, running back, skills players about what hit needs to be taken out of the game, the headshot or that shot.
Yeah.
And all of them say that shot
shot.
has to be taken out. I'm sorry. I know that you can look at a hit a million different ways. To me, it's a dirty hit. It's a target hit. I know they have no choice. The league has told them that's where you got to hit guys.
Yeah,
but that particular hit, he was targeting the knee. He could have hit the thigh. There was no need for him to go that low.
Yeah, we're I don't want to go too far down this hole, but we're running out of ways to get guys on the ground.
I understand
We can't do the hip drop tackle. We can't hit him in the knee. We can't hit him in the head. How are we supposed to? How are
right
these,
here.
especially like on those types of plays where it's a receiver over the middle?
I get it.
I don't understand where these guys are supposed to hit them now. So I see both sides. Obviously,
I
you don't
do
want
too.
injuries. Obviously, you don't want these guys getting their knees taken out. We saw it with Minka and Nick Chubb. You don't want that. Clearly, you don't want that. But on the flip side, I just don't know where some of these defensive guys are how you're supposed to get them down.
The league doesn't
now.
care about health. It only cares about concussions because they got sued.
That's it.
Right, I mean, that's it.
Yeah, they
So
pretend
they don't
to care.
care about the guys really getting
By
hurt.
the way, at some point this week, we have to do the streaming topic. The fact that they put a playoff game on Peacock
we'll get
and
to that, I
where
promise,
that's going. Because I'm going to tell you right now, we've
got
had
big
that
numbers,
conversation.
though, right?
It made huge money for Peacock.
23 million.
23 million views. And we had this conversation on Friday, you and I off the air.
Yeah.
And the league is experimenting.
Yep.
How much are our fans willing to
They
spend
know they
to
can
watch
screw
games?
the fans over
And
whatever they want. 'Cause
what's
people will do
coming
it.
is the days, and I'm not predicting this is going to happen next year, so don't everybody go nuts. In our lifetimes, in mine, and I'm 58, we will see a time where there is no such thing as a free NFL game. Think to boxing, when all the boxing matches that were worth anything were free.
Yep.
And then slowly but surely, you don't get any of that for free anymore. It's coming, and it's coming in our
I'm
lifetime.
curious if 23 million watched it on Peacock, did 22.5 million cancel it the next day?
Even if they did,
I know, they
their
still got the money.
objective was served.
They still got the
the
money.
NFL wanted to see this.
Yep.
How far can we push them?
Yep.
And they found out.
Yeah, they found out.
We
Go ahead.
will pay what we need to pay to watch our games. By the way, I don't have Peacock because I don't really stream or watch much TV. I did not buy Peacock. The game to me was, I was so done with football. I'm done with football. Like, let's talk pitchers and catchers for me. I am done with it. When the Browns lose, I'm done.
Yeah.
I didn't care to watch it. So I didn't
Break
I
down
didn't
Scott Barlow later.
I'm all in. Let's go. You're about the only guy you could do that with.
So heading into the week, we all picked the Browns, obviously, and,
Yeah.
and we were all wrong. The defensive effort from the Browns, we talked about a little earlier, just wasn't good enough, whether it was Newsome, Emerson, Hickman, guys who had been relatively solid all season, just got completely worked. In hindsight, do you think we underrated the Texans more than we overrated the Browns in this sense? And how do you kind of come to terms or put into context
What do you say?
the demise
I
of this
think.
defense?
Listen, I'm still maybe not. I'm. If I can spit it out, take two. We're all still very emotional about the Browns, so I'm not sure yet if we overrated them. I need to think about that a couple more days. I do know we underrated the Texans. I don't speak for anybody else. I know I underrated the Texans.
I agree with that.
There's no doubt. They have now. If they lose to the whoever in the next round, I may feel differently. But they have a little feel like the Bengals did when they went to the Super Bowl with Burrow in his second year. For Stroud, it's his rookie year.
Stroud's
for
special.
Burrow, it was his first year.
Stroud isn't going
second
away.
year. But they have a little bit of that feel that the quarterback has just made everybody better.
Yeah.
Right?
And that's who the special quarterbacks are. Now, where he ranks, we don't know yet. He's got to do it for 2. You can't just do it for 1 year before I put you with the elite of the elite.
No.
He looks like he's headed there.
But Bull, he's
Yeah.
done something. He's done a lot of things that have never been done before.
Well, it's the first rookie quarterback, rookie coach,
Head coach
Yeah.
to win a playoff game,
which is
they were the
amazing.
first. They were the first to win their division. Now they're the first to win a playoff game. And I don't
Right.
think any of what we've seen with CJ Stroud is a fluke.
I
know
don't.
you're right.
He's gotta do it a second year.
I call that the cement year. The cement is poured, and
Right.
it's got a great foundation. Now, does somebody walk through it and mess it all up, or does it lock into where it is? This kid is very special, and I changed my
yeah.
opinion on Ryan Day over the weekend because the fact that, and I know
Really? Look at
well,
you.
I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
I know that they didn't not win the championship because of Ryan Day or because of CJ Stroud.
Yes.
It was the defense. Clearly, everybody knew that. But the fact that he couldn't win a national championship with what now is looking like the equivalent of Joe Burrow is a bit of an indictment on Ryan Day.
Right.
How you gave up 18 points in the fourth quarter, that's going to be talked about for decades. But this guy is a special
There's no
player.
doubt about it. And think about they're making this run at the end of the season without another rookie, Tank Dell,
I
who
know.
was sensational this year as a rookie.
They're gonna be
they
scary.
hit on Stroud, they hit on Dell,
Yep.
they hit on Anderson. Those are the top 3 picks in the draft. They all look like potential longtime Pro Bowlers.
What do we know about, other than the fact that he came from the Patriots? Their general manager
Yeah.
seems to be like
Casario?
Casario.
He was under fire not that long ago.
Which is funny.
Big time. Well, I mean, they've had 3 coaches in 3 years. They had the Deshaun mess. They got sued by 30 women. Like, this is not a high-functioning organization.
They've been awful until
this
year.
is an organization that
he
very
saved
much.
his job this year.
Yes.
I don't think anybody in Houston's talking about any of that nonsense.
not
But,
now.
no, but I'm just saying this isn't that long ago. This is very much a dysfunctional organization that got bailed out by a terrific a terrific young quarterback and what looks to be
And
a
a
pretty
terrific
good head
young
coach.
coach. Yeah, right.
By the way,
they've had 3 coaches.
I
in
don't
3
even
years.
want to give the Texans too much credit for CJ Stroud. I will rip till the end of the world as one of the worst picks ever. And I know that you got to do it for 2 years.
Yeah.
And we got to see that Bryce Young next year is still that awful.
Right.
But the fact that the Carolina Panthers took a 5'10" Bryce Young
Yeah.
over this guy is all-time
It's insane. Now,
awful.
he might still be good, but I
Maybe.
can't imagine he's ever going to be better than this guy.
He's 5'10".
It's impossible
And he's
to
always
believe.
going to be 5'10".
Yeah. In terms of Mike's original question, I underrated Houston a little bit, but we all said.
Especially their defense,
But-
guys.
but
their
we-
defense was way better than I thought it was.
But we all said out of Jacksonville, Indy, and Houston, what's
That's
the
true.
team you don't want to see?
That was our last choice.
We all said Houston. Everyone said Jacksonville's probably number 1 the way they were playing at
And
the moment.
think about how
or
that
Indy,
came.
whatever.
Like, think of all the things that had to happen for us to have to go to Houston.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
Any one of them. If it
Jacksonville
ends
lost,
differently,
what, 5 of their last 6?
yes,
lost-
at one point they had a 2-game lead
Yeah.
and owned the tiebreakers.
Right.
They had
And
a,
they missed.
They had a 4th and goal on Tennessee in Week 18. All Lawrence has to do is get the ball over the goal line. Now
Yeah.
they got to make the 2-point conversion after that, and who knows after that. But, I mean, they should have beat Tennessee in Week 18, and then the Browns are going to Jacksonville. And I'm thoroughly, although if they played like that, who knows?
knows?
But I totally
You know what?
believe they probably beat
Another
Jacksonville.
thing that surprised me, the Texans crowd was a lot better. And you know what?
I'm not so sure that there wasn't some help with that.
Oh, do you think they were piping sound in?
I'm not so sure there
see,
wasn't some help.
I've been in stadiums, by the way, where I've wondered that. I'm like, I'm sitting here, and it doesn't feel like this is generating that.
Being in that stadium, let me
Wow,
tell
that's
you.
really interesting.
That's not allowed?
No,
is
it's not. You're not allowed to pump in artificial noise.
I'm just saying.
Music, yes, it has to stop when the quarterback breaks the
There
huddle.
were. Let me tell you something. There are a lot of empty seats in that stadium.
Were there really?
Yes.
It's embarrassing.
Yes. There was
Texas
a
is
lot.
I
of
want an
embarrassing
investigation.
There
Like,
were.
your former state is a complete embarrassment.
There
We're
were.
going to have Jonathan Wells on in about 45 minutes. So
Oh, he's coming
we
on?
are? Oh.
To take a victory lap. He texted me after the
We said if we'll have him back Monday, expecting to.
Yeah, but he
take
won't.
a
Well, I was
dump
going
on
to give
him.
Wells credit because he said, listen, they're going to be turned up for the game. There's not a lot of buzz right
Yeah.
now, but they're going to be turned up. I saw what the tickets were going for on the resale market. It was a joke.
Yeah, it was a joke.
There was not the interest there.
The lower bowl was packed, but like the middle row and the uppers, there were a lot of empty seats.
So then listen, your theory, I think, might have some credence to it because at home, I
It
a
sounded
number of
loud.
times said, damn, this crowd is bringing it. I underestimated their fans.
Zach and I looked at each other early on. We're like, and Zach was the first one that said, "There's no way this crowd's making that noise. There's no way." Because
Wow,
so I'm
that's
just
really disappointing.
I'm just saying.
It's
I know
somebody
it's
riding the levels,
I
huh?
know it's
Hey,
illegal
you know
and it's
what?
against the rules, and nobody in the NFL ever cheated before.
Here's the new rule. Ready? Don't ask for permission. Ask for
Ask
forgiveness.
for forgiveness. Yeah.
We are looking at a national champion in college football that had not one, but 2 different scandals during the course of the season that caused their head coach to be suspended on 2 different occasions, and they won the national championship.
That's a fact.
So here's the drill. Go ahead and cheat.
Get away
That's
with
the
this-
message. Cheat. If you get caught, beg for forgiveness.
Get away with as much as you can.
And I got to tell you, that really, really, really disappoints me.
Well, by the way, the Astros didn't beg for forgiveness. The Michigan hasn't begged for forgiveness. They're defiant.
Jim Harbaugh had the audacity to tell the media after the game, I'm innocent.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're playing the victim.
Jim, you're a liar.
The Michigan fans are playing the victim card. They are.
I know they are.
They think they're victims.
And you know what they did? It's crazy. And I think the Astros did this to an extent with their second World Series. They used it as a rallying cry.
Yeah.
They galvanized around the fact that they got caught cheating and people
Right.
were calling them cheaters.
Right.
How dare you call us a cheater? I mean, I know we cheated, but we're mad now. And you know what else I'm disappointed in? Off the topic, but I will get right back on it. ESPN, in their build-up to the national championship game, they were talking about Michigan like they were, like, oh, what a group. What a group of men they had their character challenged and they rallied together. And even after the game, they canonized them.
Right.
They're cheaters. And if society is going to take cheaters and still put the gold medal around their neck,
Yeah.
guess what we're going to get a lot more of?
More cheaters.
Cheating.
We already do. We have a lot of liars
do.
and cheaters in powerful
And
positions.
so, who knows? Maybe it was Pumpkin.
I'm rooting for the Texans, by the way, to go to the Super Bowl.
You know, I kind of am too now. CJ Stroud, I think, is he's,
I'm rooting
how
for
do
the
you not root
Texans
for
or the
him?
Bills. That's who I'm rooting for.
I would like to see the Bills. Can Houston beat those teams? Yes. Do I think they will? No.
I just don't want I want the Ravens to lose again in their first playoff game.
I do
certainly
too.
want the
I
Steelers-
definitely want that.
Definitely want the Steelers to lose.
Listen,
I definitely want Tampa Bay to lose.
keep Browns fans away from sharp objects if the Steelers win
my
at 4:30 and Baker wins at 8
Oh,
o'clock.
God.
It'll be ugly. I do have one more question before we move on to the next thing, though. But in the passing game with CJ Stroud, we saw receivers probably be more open against this Browns secondary we had seen at any other point during the season. I mean, Dalton Schultz on a couple of those deep passes, he was wide open. Nico Collins got past Emerson and Newsome. Brevin Jordan ran past everybody. Are you I don't want to say lack of effort, but there were a few plays, and especially the tight end screen that went for 76 yards, where just the tackling was poor
That was Emerson.
and the effort was lackadaisical, at least from my viewer
I thought
perspective.
the effort was poor too.
Are you guys
secondary,
surprised
no
that
safety.
Absolute garbage.
Yeah, they did. They were awful.
Across the board. Nobody played
Greg
well.
Newsome, help me with this. Maybe
Yeah.
you guys have an answer, because when I was watching it, I'm like, why did they just let that happen? The Texans wanted Collins on Newsome. So when they've got two wideouts to the left, and Newsome is obviously covering the slot guy, who was Collins, Collins just switched places and took the outside, and instead of the Browns just passing that off and letting Denzel take the outside, what they did was they said, we're going to take you, and we're going to force you to play to your weakness. And when they switched off on that, I'm like, what the hell are they doing?
That was my biggest beef with Jim Schwartz. Is
Yes.
that Denzel Ward should have been on Nico Collins the whole game.
The whole game.
I don't know what happened. That was their only chance.
And it was just so funny. It's, you know what it's like? It's like when you're playing someone in checkers and they like make a move and you keep looking at it and you're like, is this a sucker move? What are they doing here? When the Browns followed Collins and Genu went to the outside, I'm like, well, they just took our strongest player out of the play and they put their best player on our weakest player.
They had
and we took the bait.
The rest of their wide receivers are just guys.
They are.
I don't know why the game plan wasn't to say, even when you, why would Denzel Ward just not, Denzel, shut him.
He's
shut
your
him
guy.
down.
They didn't do that all year. Like Denzel had this side of the field.
It's the
Emerson
playoffs. Shake it up. We said he was going to have new rings.
I don't like that part about Jim's defense.
I'm just saying, like, they did it all year. That's how they played all year.
And maybe because they had enough confidence in anybody to stop anybody. But here's what we've learned. Martin Emerson is not fast, and Genu's a good slot corner. He's good. He's not great. He's a good, serviceable slot corner. When you put him on the outside against a team's best receiver, he gets undressed immediately.
Yeah, he can't
Nico
play
Collins was by him in 4 steps.
Yeah.
He can't play against the top receivers.
He can't. And
No.
and it was so stunning to me that Houston said, we're going to try this. There's no way it's going to work, but we're just going to have Nico switch places.
Yeah, it worked all game.
And there's no way you guys are going to take the bait on that, and we took the bait on that.
It was terrible. And, we made a point of saying, hey, Jim left some stuff in the bag for the playoffs. He didn't leave anything for the bag in the playoffs. He didn't try anything new. And even if you say they played that way the whole year, and you're right, how about you adjust when it's not working?
I agree with that.
There's no time to wait.
Yeah.
To the point that, and I don't like that they made the point. I thought it was a bad look on both Genu and on Myles Garrett to say, well, we didn't change up. Well, you didn't show up. So let's talk about that first.
Yeah.
Yes, there were, but now you got everybody's pointing fingers all over the place.
Yeah.
And that's a bad look for everybody.
He said he didn't play bad. I mean,
He played
me?
played horribly.
He was terrible.
And as far as Myles Garrett, I don't know how that guy is the defensive player of the year. I just don't. I've said it all along. My criticism on him, your best player has to make his best plays in the biggest spots. That's why I've said, to me, TJ's a little better. A little better.
In fairness, everybody thought the biggest competition was, what's his name in Dallas?
Micah Parsons.
And he was a pig
he
yesterday,
did nothing
too.
either.
He was awful.
He no-showed also, and Watt's not playing
Is
tonight,
Mike
so.
McCarthy out today?
I think he's going to get
No.
fired.
You think he is? I don't think
do.
he is. I don't think
Jerry
he is.
was really
they
coy
got-
with his post-game comments. I think he's out.
Dude, they dominated at home. They as good as the Browns were at home, Dallas was even better because they were great both offensively and defensively at home, and they got killed.
Awful.
Killed. And Dak was
27
horrible.
to not, what was crazy is
Yeah.
they kind of made it interesting at the end.
Well, they had it to 16.
They had it to 16, and
they
that
had the ball.
onside kick was there.
Yeah.
It worked, and the Cowboys didn't recover it.
No.
And even after that, the Packers put all their starters back in the game.
Yep.
And it looked like for a minute, if the Cowboys didn't completely piss down their leg at the 109 mark, it started when they caught a ball and didn't go out of bounds to stop the clock.
The Packers kind of shut it down there.
They did. They did.
You do that, it's hard to get it going again.
I know it really is.
Yeah,
It
mean,
was
Dallas
interesting.
was
But
awful. But
I think they're going to be, you know what, is we talk about this because it's the Steelers all the time. About, well, how do you fire their head coach? They make the playoffs. Well, in Dallas's case, it's worse because they win 12 games. And then they look nothing like the team that won 12 games.
At least Tomlin has won a championship.
He has
where
won.
McCarthy did, but in Green Bay, so who cares?
Yeah, that equity did not transfer
No.
with him to Dallas. And
No.
losing to the team, that had to hurt for Mike McCarthy.
Right,
Man.
yeah.
Jason,
My
what did you
God.
make of some of the post-game comments yesterday, especially about the defense not making adjustments and Denzel Ward simply saying, quote, we just didn't show up?
I thought Denzel was the most honest. That's
true.
That's true.
Yeah.
You didn't show up. I was disappointed. We talked about it earlier. I was
How
disappointed.
do you explain that, though? Like, how do you not get up for that
I
game?
don't know.
Did they take the first game's results for granted? I know Bull in the note said, that's crazy. There's no such thing as a trap game. I thought this looked like a trap game.
No, to me, that's giving them an excuse.
No,
No,
because
it's not giving an excuse. I mean, it's indicting them. They're guilty of it.
That's true. It is.
They
indicted.
took the bait on the trap game. So there's one thing to be a trap game and you don't take the bait. I thought it was a trap game. I was very nervous about this game. And the Browns played like they thought they were going to win easily.
I can't explain how they played so poorly, but I just don't buy that they took it lightly. I don't see that.
The Browns have accomplished nothing. Like, what do they have? What laurel do they have to rest on? Like, there is
No, I'm
none.
not saying it's warranted, but I'm saying I think that's what happened.
I disagree. I don't think so. Only because
So what happened?
I don't. It was just a bad day. Like, it happens. It's a bad day. It's not an excuse.
It's a bad day to have a
It's
bad
a bad day to have a bad day. You're absolutely right. And it was the effort more than anything. It felt like, guys, again, the Texans should not be that much faster than you. Their skill position guys are not that much faster than you. It looked like dudes were jogging out there. And that's the part that was so frustrating and infuriating to me. It looked like it was effort, and the effort wasn't there. And I have no explanation. Nobody does for how you look like that in a playoff game. But I don't think it's, oh, well, we beat these guys on Christmas Eve, so we got this. Like, I don't think that was it at all. So.
It's disappointing, whatever it is, whatever the reason is for the collective failure of the organization. It's really disappointing. It's funny how
Did you feel like it was a trap game, Jay?
I did.
Like, in a way?
Yeah, I
'Cause to
did.
me, and obviously
Listen,
there's no
I
trap games in
picked the
playoffs,
Browns
but it
to
felt
win
like that.
17-14. I thought it was going to be a low-scoring game. I gave serious consideration and even ran this by a couple of people to picking the Texans. And everybody that I ran it by, like, oh, you're nuts. That's why I think it was a trap game. I'm like, clean sweep. I mean, we always have a clean sweep. But a lot of the NFL experts, Cleveland.
Yeah, but there were plenty of people that picked Houston.
I did see one guy, I think Yahoo writer, wrote a pretty good piece and explained why Houston was going to win.
At the great Adam Rank, who everybody in Cleveland was killing after the season, picked Houston.
So to me, I was as close as I've been to not picking the Browns that I'd been all year. There were a couple times that I picked against the Browns this year, but there were a couple times that I picked the Browns, but I felt a little more comfortable than I did in this particular instance. I was terrified of this game.
I just think it's easy to say when a team gets blown out, oh, they took them lightly, or they. I just think I don't buy that. I certainly.
So
I could
then
be
the Texans
wrong.
are just that much better than us?
No, the better. Listen, the Texans were a lot better on this day, right? The better team doesn't always
And
win
what I'm
or
trying
whatever.
to do, and it's crazy to try to do this because it's like trying to put 53 guys on the couch. Like, they've all got different reasons. They've all got different motivations for playing like ass.
Yeah.
What we're trying to do is collectively figure out how a team of men that looked so galvanized and had been through so much and had accomplished so much against the longest of odds showed up and played like that.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard.
And I don't
but
know
the
what
thing
the
is,
answer is.
It's really just the defense for the most part because the offense played well enough in the first half.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you score, if they only scored 14 points, so that's not enough to win a playoff game.
I mean, they scored, but they had 4. I'm saying the first half.
Yes, but I mean, in the second half, it was a
But
disaster.
the game was
It was an
over.
avalanche. It was,
Yeah.
but not. It wasn't for the first 7 minutes of the third quarter.
I know that, but their first drive was a pick 6, and now they're down 17. At that point, the team fell apart.
Yeah, but even
there's
when
no
the
excuse for
Cowboys
that,
were
I'm
down
just saying.
17, the games were actually similar the way they played out. The Cowboys were down 27, then they got it back to 17, and you thought, okay, but then the defense just 4 plays, boom, boom, boom,
Yeah.
boom, boom, touchdown Green Bay. Now you're like, okay, at 24, it's over.
Yeah, there's always a million things that go into a win and a loss. Sometimes you just have a bad day. And it happens. We know this. I mean,
Yeah.
this is just,
But
I just
know
don't
it.
buy that I find it impossible to believe that the Browns took the Texans lightly.
Totally agree. It's
And
a playoff
I don't
game.
think they know the difference between Case Keenum and CJ Stroud. They understand that.
It was the second time this team's been in the playoffs in 20 years. So there's no reason for them to think that anything comes easier. We've got this. There's no reason to think that at all.
No, but if you just juxtapose this run against the one that was made 4 years ago.
Are we getting to that next, Mike?
No, we can talk about this for a sec.
Yeah, because I thought about that in the second half of the game. I thought about, my God, nobody thought that this was going to happen. In part because they were never out of the last 2 playoff games they played. In fact, it was 7-0 before the first beer was sold in Heinz Field in 2020. Mm-hmm. And they never trailed, and they had a huge lead. Ben Roethlisberger threw for 500 yards in that game, and they lost.
Well, they were down big, so.
Well, exactly. But what I'm saying is, if you have a quarterback throw for 500 yards against you, it's because you have a massive lead, and you're giving him whatever he wants. Yeah. So in that game, it was reversed. The Browns were the Texans, and the Steelers were the Browns. Then they go to Kansas City. And we expected that game was going to be a very, very, very uphill climb. And they were never out of that game. They were in it all the way.
You got to factor in that if Mahomes had not gotten hurt, it probably would have been a different game.
It would have, but he did. So on that day,
I'm saying you said you thought it would be an uphill climb. We thought it would be an uphill climb because of Mahomes.
Well, at halftime, Mahomes played the whole first half.
I know that.
But
if you knew Mahomes was going to miss the second half.
And he didn't miss the whole second half. He missed
most of it.
I think he got hurt late in the third quarter.
I can't remember now.
But either way, Bull, I mean, that's semantics. Either way, if you juxtapose the 2 playoff experiences, that one we were proud of the boys. They gave it at their all.
Right.
They damn near beat the defending Super Bowl champions and the team that we thought was unbeatable for our team. And so if you start, I chart a team's progress and along an arc. And the Browns' arc is so difficult to follow because it was down here forever. It had this, and then it had this, and then it got this, and then in an instant it went down to here again. So
did it? Does one game put it all the way down to here?
So I feel a lot less excited about next year now than I did Friday. Because I just didn't think that this team was capable of that egg. And the 3-6 on the road, if you do that on the road every year, you're not going to do anything.
I guess the question is, and Mike wanted to ask this, is how do you feel? It's hard because you got to take your mind back to where you were in 2020.
Right.
Or technically 2021 because it was.
The playoff run was 21.
How do you feel about where the team is right now compared to where you felt the team was after the 2020 season?
Not nearly as good. Why would I?
Well, this thing's better about the team currently.
Yeah, but the overall picture, So are there pixels of the picture
Yeah.
I like better now?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But the entire picture, to me, in 2020, and who wasn't thinking this at the time? I thought in 2020, I'm like, we've got it. We've got our coach. We all thought we had our quarterback. We all thought we had our defense. we all thought this is sustainable for years.
The Browns' defense wasn't nearly as good as it was this year.
It wasn't, but you know what? We're still asking ourselves the question, what is this defense?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think I'm trying to take my mind back to where I was. It's hard to compare because, as you said, and you're right, you didn't feel as crappy about the team the way the season ended in that year.
I was proud. I was
year.
proud. I literally, and you know what? Everybody that knows me and on a national level was reaching out.
Yeah.
Man, you should be excited about the future.
Right.
What an effort. They damn near went into Kansas City and pulled off the unthinkable.
I wasn't as sold on the team as a whole after that year.
Really?
I mean, I thought they were good, and I did think they'd go back to the playoffs. But everybody thought, well, next year we're going to be even better, and I wasn't convinced of that.
Well, you always do.
Because I wasn't completely sold on Baker. Now, I bought into him that year, and I was like, I gave him his full credit that year. I thought he played great down the stretch.
Yeah, you and I did shows going into that 21 season. I remember we were both like, yeah, this team could play for the AFC Championship game, and Baker's one of those guys.
Yeah.
I think we did. I think we
You
were.
think I did?
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember. I don't think I was as high as some other teams.
No, you were, because I did shows with you.
All right, Jason's calling me out.
You make a good point. It is hard to remember year to year to year to year. I just know, for me, because, if I asked you about the Bengals, you would be able to give me specifics. You're in the minutia of all of that. Now, I know you're covering this Browns team.
I'm in the minutia of the Browns,
but
even as much, if not more, than the Bengals.
You are, but would you say, maybe I'm wrong,
4 years
you're
ago.
more emotionally attached to your team. I would be.
The only reason I say that is because I specifically remember doing a couple shows with you leading into 21 where we both felt like this team could go on a run, this team could play in the AFC Championship
And
game.
then it quickly changed as soon as the season started.
I wrote after that Chiefs game, the regular season game, Baker's got to be better. And that started it for me, was getting off the Baker train.
Yeah.
But in that preseason of that year, we were both on
that
board.
was the narrative. No, I don't remember national voices saying, oh, this Browns team, that was all a fluke. There's no way they repeat it. Nobody was saying that. Everybody was saying they've got a second-year coach who's only going to be better. They've got a young quarterback. In the next year.
I see.
I'm saying, so they've got a young quarterback that has seemingly figured it out. There were a lot of things to invest in that team, and a lot of people
Sounds a lot like
did
the
invest.
Texans, doesn't it?
It does. Now
Sounds
listen,
a lot like the
if
Texans.
the Texans come back next year and go, what did the Browns go that next year? 7-9? If the Texans go 7, it wouldn't shock me.
Yeah.
This is hard shit. Yeah. This is hard to do.
Yeah.
It is really hard to do. And unless you've got that Mahomes piece or the Josh Allen piece or, in the Bengals case, the Joe Burrow piece, it's even harder to do.
Well, that's what it comes down to. It's how you feel about this team going forward
is the quarterback.
Is once again back to how you feel about Deshaun Watson.
All eyes turn to 4.
And that's why I think I actually felt better 2020 going into 21 than I do now, because I look at this and go, well, everyone's older. All the key pieces are 3-4 years older. You're getting sort of to that cliff.
Well, you have some new key pieces, but a lot of them are older.
Well, the offensive line is all older.
Chubb's coming back from an injury.
But there's some good players on defense that are younger.
There are, but Myles is starting to get up there a little bit. He's still in his prime.
Sure.
But how many great years is left
No, you're
there?
right. Nick Chubb's older. We don't know what he's going to be next year.
You
didn't have Amari Cooper.
But the biggest question is, Deshaun Watson has thrown for 2,000 yards over the last 4 years. Like going into next year, it's 4 years since his last good year.
Right, sure.
He missed all of 21. He threw for 1,122. He threw for 1,123.
Now, his last half of football,
everybody's just clinging to that. Everybody's just clinging to that.
You know what? I told my son yesterday, what's going to get me through the offseason is the second half against Baltimore.
But here's what worries me, too, is not only am I still not sure how good he is at this point, I'm not sure that he can stay healthy.
Absolutely.
Well, and I wasn't worried about that aspect when they got him.
I was and I said it at the time, because he's a running quarterback.
I hear you.
You have to be
It's gotten worse now.
Oh, sure.
Well, he's older.
Yeah.
And he's had injuries.
It's a much bigger concern for me now than it was when they traded for him.
And that's fair. He's 3 years older.
And the truth is, yes, even you and I, who have been not high on Baker for the most part, the more I think about it, you're right. At the end of the 2020 season, I felt a lot better about Baker than I do about Deshaun Watson right now.
But by the time we kick off next year, it'll have been 4 years since his last good year.
Yeah.
That's a long time.
In the NFL?
That's a long time.
Again,
that's Joe Flacco-like.
If we see the guy that played that second half in Baltimore, the Browns will be in good shape next year.
Yep.
If we see the inconsistency that we've seen most of his time here, they'll still be decent.
Yeah, my fear, Bull, is
Yeah.
look how long it took to get that half of football out of him. It took 6 games last year.
Yeah.
It took 6 games this year.
I mean, he
And
had a
we
couple of other
finally got
decent games this year.
Decent games, but our definition of decent game is a little skewed. He was throwing, we were happy when he finally threw for 200 yards, remember? Because everything was like 190, 170, 160. We're like, what is this?
Yeah.
Then he threw for 221, and we're like, there we go.
Listen, fans can convince themselves of anything. At this
Tell-
point through
tell
2
me about
years, he's been a total disaster for the Browns.
100%.
We can pick and choose a couple of little good moments.
Yeah.
And that Ravens second half was great. He was great.
It was all
that
time
was great.
It was
but
all time great.
overall, 2 years in,
Yeah.
it's a disaster.
Again, it's the picture.
Yes.
The whole picture
Yes.
is blurry. There's beautiful pixels in there.
Yeah.
But overall, the picture is not good.
He's been here for 2 years, and I know he had the suspension, he's had the injuries. 2 years in Cleveland, he's had 2,200 yards. Flacco in 5 games, 1,600 yards.
How many games has Watson played? Don't include, how many full games has he played?
Played 6 this year.
forget
all
the Colts
6
game.
last year and 5 this year.
Right. No,
So-
Fully healthy.
yeah, 5. So he's played
11
11
total.
games.
11 games,
So
2,200
he's-
yards.
That's
is
200 yards a game.
awful.
That's a disaster.
You won't win that way.
No.
You will not win that way.
2,200 yards-ish, 2,217, I guess, is the
Just
total.
call it 22 in 11 full games.
2,200 yards, 14 touchdowns, 9 interceptions.
Yeah, it's
2,200
not good
yards,
enough.
14
I
touchdowns,
mean, the
9
14
interceptions.
touchdowns in 11 games isn't bad.
Here's
It's
what I
not
always say.
amazing.
I've had this
Flacco, just for sake comparison, 1,600 yards, 13 touchdowns.
Yeah, wait,
8
I'm sorry.
interceptions.
14 touchdowns in 11 games is not good. We expected
No.
30 touchdowns from this guy.
That's exactly.
I'm saying it's not bad.
No, it's
I have
awful.
lowered my standard on him.
And Bull, that's
It's
what I said.
ridiculous.
And
Yeah.
remember, he went 160, 170, 190,
Yeah.
and all these, and then he went for 221. We're like, there, now here he is.
Right.
No, that's not
No.
what we need. We need 380 yards. We need CJ Stroud numbers.
Yes.
We need that. And here's the thing. You're right. That's the greatest statement of the day. Fans can convince themselves of anything.
Yeah.
Boy, don't we know it.
Right.
We've done that. There are certain fans that are convincing themselves that he's going to be Baltimore second half, DW, and Houston from 4 or 5 years ago, DW, and that's fine. You can do that. But the more recent body of work and what we've seen in that leads me to believe what I would say today, exactly what I'd said the day the trade was made. We're going to regret this. And I think we're a lot closer to regretting it. And I've had people that reached out to me after the Baltimore second half. Still regret it? My answer is still yes, and here's why. Ask anybody, would you do that trade over again today?
No. Now, I would still have moved on from Baker personally.
Fine.
But I would not make that
If
trade.
you had made the decision that
Yeah.
Baker wasn't the guy,
Right.
and I have
They're
no
separate
problem
from
with
each
that.
other. They're
They
separate.
are not mutually exclusive.
Yes.
I get that.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think it was completely fair because we judged him on a season when the guy should not. I read a
But-
piece yesterday
Yeah.
that Jen Latta wrote. She's the Bucks writer, and the thrust of the piece was how Baker came into the Tampa Bay locker room and made it his and galvanized it and won the locker room, and how incredible that was coming off the heels of Tom Brady. Now, look, I'm not saying they're going to beat Philly tonight, but what I'm saying is we knew he had those qualities, and it flipped. I still say it. I just can't believe how quickly it flipped. And he was judged on that season where he was injured, and I get that. And honestly, Bull, I will not kill them for the decision to move on from him.
But yes,
And-
to your
but-
point,
but
I
to
don't-
go where they went with the Watson move didn't make sense then.
Right now,
it hasn't made sense once over the last 2
I
years.
thought it
to
made
me.
sense at the time. I'm not going to be a phony about it. I thought it made sense because I thought you had to have an elite quarterback. I thought, and at the time, I thought there was no reason to believe he wouldn't be. I think
Even with the baggage.
at the time, I think looking back, I severely underestimated the
the impact
mental
that would
aspect of the impact that would have on his mental.
Now, the good news for us is next August, that's another year removed.
Right, but let's face it. You say they're closer to being a final answer disaster. This is it. This is the last year for him.
If
to turn
it doesn't
around.
happen next year,
it's not going to happen.
you almost eat the remaining $120 million and you just move.
Yeah, I mean, you have, at the very least, even if they don't get, let's say he has a bad year or another inconsistent year, another injured year, at the very least, you have to be looking at a quarterback in the draft and be planning to move on, even if you don't actually move on after 3 years.
Yeah. Okay, Mike.
We got 5 minutes before we got to read some super chats because there are some really fun ones. Then we'll get Jonathan Wells at 12:45. We usually do the shotgun intros, but Bull, I'm gonna do a FanDuel read, and we're gonna do some final thoughts, opposite of shotgun. We'll end our little portion of this with just your overall thoughts on the game from Saturday. But first, FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook, and as the regular season wraps up, there's still time to get in on the action with America's #1 sportsbook, and that is, as always, FanDuel Sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed just by placing a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. The app is easy to use, and there are so many different ways to bet, including live same-game parlays. You can find bets in the new Explorer tab. You can make a parlay in the Parlay Hub, which is the best and easiest way to find popular parlays, and so much more. So visit FanDuel.com/UCSS to make your first bet a layup. FanDuel, an official partner of the NFL. We got 5 minutes for a super chat. Jason, you want to start? Instead of shotgun intros, let's do shotgun outros. But just the overall disappointment, thoughts, anything you want to go. You got about a minute and a half. The floor is yours.
Oh, I don't think I even need a minute and a half. Just really disappointed in just the effort defensively more than anything. I said earlier I put 90% of the blame on the defense for that. Flacco wasn't great, but I don't blame him necessarily for the loss. It was a terrible throw on the first pick six, and then things just snowballed on him from there. I do think that there's a lot to build off once we remove the emotion of this and get a little bit farther away from this. This is still a team that was really tough and really resilient and handled a lot of adversity this year and kept coming and kept coming and kept coming. And those are good things. Those are good qualities to have in a team, to be able to say it doesn't matter who goes down. We can continue. We can still move forward. For the locker room to believe that and say that is a really good thing. So, you know, do I feel as good now as I did in 2020? No, I don't. I probably felt better about them in 2020, but so what? What does that matter? Because it all unraveled anyway, and look how much different we are in a spot now than we were back then. So a lot of questions about this team moving forward, a lot of questions about the age, some contract decisions that have to be made, and ultimately it comes down to Deshaun, in which everyone said it earlier, everyone is clinging to the second half Deshaun of, well, there it is, and it showed unbelievable toughness to play through the injuries that he had, to come out and play as well as he did in that second half. Now he's got to do it for a whole game, and for a whole next game, and the next game, in a month, and 2 months, and 3 months, and put the whole season together. Because, Bull, I agree with you. If it doesn't happen next year, now we're having the conversation of how do you get out of those last 2 years. And if you keep reworking the contract and you keep kicking that down the road, it makes that divorce that much harder.
The Browns gave us a lot of fun this year. It's hard to see that now, less than 48 hours after the season. I had a ton of fun watching this team. Now, I'm not going to lie, I had a ton of fun watching this team in 2020, but this was more fun because fans were at the games. Everything was sour in 2020, even though the Browns had a great season and they were fun to watch. It was COVID. Everybody was miserable. Everybody was fighting. I mean, we're still kind of fighting, but it was just, in a way, there was that yuckiness of it, and fans not being at the games took something away from it. We all know that. This season was a lot of fun. I'm trying not to forget that. And I'm hoping fans don't forget that either after we get over the emotion at some point. It's hard to, because the loss was so pathetic. Their performance was pitiful. The season was fun. I agree with Jason. There are things to build off of a next year, but there are also things to be concerned about. I think the defense is in much better shape than it was in 2020. I think they're way better coached despite what happened Saturday, and I think they have way more talent on defense. On the offensive side of the ball, though, I got major concerns. Baker played great down the stretch that season. We don't know what we got. When Joe Flacco's not going to be the quarterback next year. He played well, but not nearly as well as Baker played in 2020. And Deshaun Watson's been pretty bad so far as a Brown. He's had a couple of good moments, but he's not been nearly the quarterback we thought he was. If Deshaun Watson can get back there, which I thought he would initially, and I thought he would again this year, then yeah, I think this team's in really good shape. But if he doesn't, who knows? I think the Browns will be competitive at the very least next year. I feel definitely better about Stefanski now than I did in 2020 because he's proven it longer. I'm more confident in him going forward. I think he should get an extension. I think Berry should get an extension. But they're both, like everybody else, they got their flaws and things they need to improve on. Hopefully they will. But there's a lot of questions this offseason, including Nick Chubb. What are we going to do about him? That's a big thing we'll talk about over the next few weeks.
My final thoughts are I loved the movie. I hated the ending, if that's possible. I think we've all gone to movies where, wow, this is awesome. An hour and 45 of just beautiful cinema. And then the lead character maybe drinks Kool-Aid and dies. And you're like, wait, what? I hate that. I didn't want that. I didn't see that coming. So for me, I love the movie. I hated the ending. I know as time passes, I'll forget the pain and the ugliness of this loss. But in truth, let's face it, none of us could have said in week 2 or 6 or 10 or 13, after all of the injuries and all of the key pieces that we missed, that this was going to happen. That Joe Flacco was going to fly into town on a magic carpet and take us to places that we didn't think he could take us. A guy that we once hated and rooted against took us to an unbelievable place. I'll never forget the night at the stadium from the Jets. That was one of the most fun experiences I've had as a Browns fan, actually at a game. It was a blast. So all of that was great, but then the magic bean lost its power, and just like that, the carpet lost its juice and fell to the ground, and we all crashed to the ground with it. But I loved the first hour and 45 minutes of the movie. There's concerns that I have coming into next year, but I will guarantee you this. On September, in the first week of the season next year, I will have my brown sweatshirt on. I will have all the hope and enthusiasm in my heart that I do every year, and I will knowingly buckle up and sit down for a ride that I don't know where it's going to take me, but history tells me it will end in disaster. But I'm willing to jump on that ride one more time and do it again.
It's really an electric chair that you're just strapping yourself into.
You're probably right.
That's it.
I figured last night when I was trying to cheer up my son that in my lifetime, the Browns and the Indians Guardians are a collective 0 for 116. That defies all mathematical odds and probability. But the teams that I most love have given me 116 collective seasons of shit. And I'm coming back for next year.
That's what makes
guys,
you a fan.
We got super chats, so let me get into these, and we'll have Jonathan Wells here in a sec. We got a lot of really funny ones and some ones that are worth discussing real quick. But Betsy Gardner says, the agony of my Browns playoff experience. Red right 88, the drive, the fumble, the shootout, the helmet hit, and now the blowout. Hopefully someday we get the comeback. Set Apart Laz says, don't care what anyone says. We shouldn't have sat our starters against Cincinnati. Uber Driver, shout out to Uber Driver, says Cleveland and Dallas are both similar teams in player skills. Neither team have no game changers. Watson is Cleveland's game changer. He could put the team on his shoulders, assuming he's not injured. DB Dog 21 has a question, and Jay, I'll let you answer this, and then we'll move on. There's a bunch of questions, so we'll try to keep these quick. I have a goal of one day owning an NFL franchise. Why do you guys feel like the Haslams are such crappy owners? Serious question. He seems to have gotten better with the regime. Am I way off here?
No, he's got this regime right, so I'm not going to kill him.
The worst part about Jimmy Haslam, besides like the criminal behavior that he's been accused of multiple times, the FBI, this whole thing that's going on with what's his name, that
Warren
other billionaire,
Buffett suit.
All this ugliness and that stuff, and fans are not privy to like I feel like I sound like a douche when I say this, and I don't mean to, but we know stuff because we know people that we can't share. We share almost everything we have, but we can't share everything, unfortunately.
And the stuff we can't share is either not corroborated,
Right.
or we don't want to be the mouthpiece that lets that cat out of the bag.
Right. And the meddling,
That never ends well for the person that
level
does.
of meddling from the Haslams with the football people is, now, maybe it's gotten better, because I don't know.
Yep.
I don't have, I'm not around that. Like, we used to be there at training camp every day when I was on the radio show, so I spoke to more people that I don't speak to as often anymore. Maybe maybe as the team's gotten better, maybe he's meddled less. I don't know. Jason, I think, he hasn't.
No.
So there you go.
That's problematic because we need, I always say this, we need less of his decision-making and more of the decision-making and empowering the people that he hired to make those decisions.
I will tell you that. I'll tell you this. I'll tell you one thing I don't think I've shared on the air, maybe not. And I can't remember now which game it was. I think it was the Ravens game.
I heard this too. I know exactly where you're going.
That maybe I'm wrong that it was the Ravens game, but maybe if you know what I'm talking about, then that after the game, Jimmy was not happy
because we didn't throw it enough.
They didn't throw the ball enough.
That is a fact.
that they ran the ball too much. Was it definitely the Ravens game?
That was the game.
So you heard it too.
Yep.
So, and I'm like, oh my God.
I'll tell you.
He was complaining after they
No,
beat
it
the
wasn't.
Ravens.
It was the Cardinals game.
It was the Cardinals.
It was the Cardinals game.
Okay, that's
It
right.
was a game that we boat raced the other team.
Right. And after the game, instead of being happy about a blowout, it was the Cardinals game.
And the reason that's problematic is because we bought into the fool's gold that you can win that way, that you can win with 45 throws, and you can be 75-25 off balance on pass and run, when we know you can't.
Well, I don't necessarily agree that you can't in certain games, even in the playoffs, but you have to have
Eventually
you have to have a top 5 quarterback to do it, to have any chance. You can't do it with Joe Flacco.
I, too, heard that same exact criticism.
Right.
And when I heard it, I got a pit in my stomach. Because I literally thought to myself, that explains everything.
And
that explains why he's in sync with the guy that he's kept regime to regime. Because he, too, thinks you can win that way. You know who I'm talking about.
Yeah, I don't blame him as much as you do. You're more down on him than I do. I'm not sure on him. But I know that Jimmy Haslam is a meddler. I know that he pits people against each other in the organization.
And the fact that you would say after a dominant win, it was good, but we should have thrown the ball more.
It's a bad sign.
Stop it.
All right, we got
Watch
some more.
the games, write the checks, stay the hell out of the way.
Yes.
All right, next up comes from Charles T., who asked, how do you guys feel about other Cleveland media members saying this is Stefanski's fault for not running the ball more, while comparing Cleveland's running backs to Detroit running backs, who are a whole lot light years better?
Yeah, Jerome Ford's not a lead back.
Who did that?
And you don't have your 2 best tackles.
Yeah.
I don't really blame them for going pass heavy because, yes, the run game was good early in the year, and with each new injury to the offensive line, it just disappeared.
You mean blaming them specifically for this loss?
I'm just reading, I think.
I don't know who said that. Whoever said that
had nothing to do with why they lost to Houston.
The first half had nothing. The offense did great. They scored 14 points.
No criticism.
They're on pace for 28. Like, you should win
a playoff game
with your defense at 28.
You're absolutely right.
The second half, by the time the
offense... You can't run when you're down 17.
I know. So, that's ridiculous.
And by the way, we couldn't run.
And the Lions...
why couldn't we run?
The Lions have, I think, the best offensive line in football, or one of them. And the Lions have 2 awesome backs.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say awesome. Montgomery's good.
We got a bunch more, so we got to fly through.
Okay, Charles T.
also
made
that's just off base. Yeah. I don't know any media members that said the Browns lost in Houston because they didn't run it.
Yeah, that's stupid.
He named a couple. I didn't want to name. I'll tell you.
I didn't see any.
I don't want to name people who aren't on this show. Show. Charles T. also said defense is to get the most blame in this game. They look slow, out of place. Newsome got cooked. So did Thornhill. So who gets replaced on the defensive line? We'll talk about that tomorrow, Charles. So we'll answer that question tomorrow. Pete Williams said the Browns had injuries and worked through them. Myles was hurt. Ward was hurt. Watch the game closely. Flacco is the reason you can't fight back-to-back pick sixes. Watson, no controversy next year. X Factor XP says, I believe the owner of the Browns made a business decision and lost this game on purpose so the fans will embrace Watson next season. Thoughts?
I'm not even acknowledging that.
The insanity knows no bounds.
Yeah,
I'm not even acknowledging
Guys,
that.
here's the plan. Now listen, just hear me out. You need to go to Houston and lay an egg, okay?
Yeah.
I need to grease the skids for my backup quarterback. Now I mean it, guys, and it sounds short-sighted, but go lose.
There was never going to be controversy. Deshaun Watson was always going to be the starter.
By the way, there was one headline that cracked me up about the it was Laramie Tunsil question for Myles Garrett disappearance.
Yeah.
Very funny. What I would have done as a headline was I would have taken the picture of Tunsil and the gas mask smoking up, and my headline would have been Tunsil smokes Garrett. That would have been it.
Yeah. Would have been your most creative headline.
That would have been.
I know.
That should have been your headline for this game. Had you
known.
known.
I would have been Nostradamus.
Next up, Josh M. says, my most generous observation of Saturday is this. The Browns are riding a wave of momentum that was absolutely electric. We could all feel it. Taking an L and 16 days off killed that, and it showed on Saturday. We have another one like that in a sec. OP Method said good teams have bad games. This wasn't us. Sly said the defense didn't have a chance to make adjustments in the second half because Flacco threw those 2 pick sixes.
I disagree.
Vernell Jackson said can't be sharp after sitting 17 days. That killed the momentum. Damian Frederick said playoff trap games don't exist. Jay, you said Myles was 100% DPOY last week.
I thought that.
Now he's not after a playoff game for
No.
a regular season award.
Yep.
Everyone is emotional. They got smacked in the mouth. The better team won on Saturday.
Listen, I also thought that I thought Stefanski was the coach of the year too, and now I have a little bit more information. And as G. Bush always says, if you don't change your mind after you have more information, you're stupid.
We get it. The award has already been voted on. So
And I get that it's a regular season award.
After
But
what
I
you
said
saw
was,
this week,
it will be somewhat embarrassing for Myles Garrett to get up at the NFL awards dinner in Las Vegas later this year and accept the Defensive Player of the Year award. I think it would be somewhat embarrassing for Kevin Stefanski to have to stand up with Ryans in the room and take that trophy.
I actually think it's worse for Stefanski because Stefanski lost directly to his competition.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
But also, in the biggest game of the year, your Defensive Player of the Year was on a milk carton.
That's true.
And that you can't have that.
But, yeah, go ahead, Mike.
A couple more here, and I want to end with one in particular. So if I skip yours, I'll get back to it in 1 second. I want to end with this. But Sly said in response to the 2020 playoff game, we were down 16 going to third quarter of the Chiefs playoff game. The difference was our quarterback didn't throw 2 pick sixes to start it off. Evan Forward.
Also, remember the Chiefs game just before half, we had a touchdown that because of the dumbest rule in the NFL, if you fumble into the end zone and it goes out of bounds, or if you fumble into the end zone, it's a turnover.
Yeah.
And it took 7 points away from the Browns and just, I thought, really, really killed
Evan
our
419
momentum.
says something that we're going to talk about a little bit more tomorrow. He said this defense beat 2 healthy, good quarterbacks all season. Lamar still put up 31. Purdy didn't have McCaffrey or Debo. It was a fraudulent D beating up on bad quarterbacks. We're going to dive into that tomorrow. Vernell Jackson said the whole panel thought the season was doomed when we lost Watson to season-ending injury. Now we shouldn't have traded for him. You guys are hypocrites.
No, not at all.
That doesn't make you a hypocrite.
By the way, is doomed because you're looking at P.J. Walker and
here's
Dorian Thompson-Robinson.
Exactly. I mean, it's just what I just said. You change your opinion with each new piece of information you get. You're stupid if you don't. You can't lock into it.
Yeah.
And I didn't think that the Browns were going to win the Super Bowl even when Deshaun Watson was playing his best football.
By the way, if Deshaun Watson comes out next year and he's back to being the superstar,
new information.
Then we're going to be like, I'm glad they made the trade. It took a while.
And listen,
of course it's going to happen.
If they start 8-0 next year, I'll sit here and say, listen, when I said for 2 years that was an awful trade, I'm going to take it back.
That doesn't take away that for the first 2 years he was awful. They were awful.
It's never going to change the fact that for the first 2 years it was a bad trade.
And by the way, even a up and down Deshaun Watson, which is what we got this year, is a lot better than P.J. Walker. So of course we thought it was over. By the way, I remember one day Jay and G arguing with me that the season was not over. So you guys actually didn't think it was over.
I know. In fact,
So
as recently as week 14 of the regular season, when we were talking about Super Bowl chances, I was the one that gave them an absurdly high 10% chance to win the Super Bowl.
You used bottle caps. I don't think anyone besides you understood the analogy you were using the bottle caps that day, Jay. So
I don't even remember the bottle caps.
The bottle caps.
What was the bottle cap? I don't remember.
You made it up. No one else understood.
Yeah,
I
it was
texted
crazy.
Paul,
I don't even remember talking about bottle caps.
That's how absurd the analogy you used.
Bad job out of you for bringing it up, Mike.
You got to remind me what it was.
You were like, if there's 12 bottle caps on one side
Remind
of
them
the
off
table.
the air. It's too confusing.
Yeah, I don't get it.
You used. We got 3 more.
But I was
Jonathan
killed when
Wells.
I said I thought they had a better chance than everybody else at winning the Super Bowl.
3 more, then we'll bring Jonathan Wells in here. Ahmed Fadala has 2. He says, why does everyone keep talking about Deshaun Watson versus the Ravens in the second half? He went 14 for 14 on checkdowns. Rewatched the game.
That's not
true.
true.
His longest pass traveled 15 air yards.
He made great passes in that game in big moments.
His 14 is perfect. Houston Deshaun over second half. Ravens Deshaun, that's also from Ahmed. Josh M. says, I hear the guys looking for answers to why there was no energy, no fire, no surge of motivation. The answer for this team this year is they lost all momentum and it killed the fire and drive. And I want to end with this one while we wait for Jonathan to hop on. He just texted me, said
there
he's
might be
logging
something
in now.
to that, by the way.
He said,
the momentum loss.
Yeah,
Never know.
Yeah, I do think that's a different argument in, okay, should we revisit it and go play all of our starters against Cincinnati? I still don't believe that. But for whatever reason, this team did lose momentum. Clearly, they peaked at the Jets game and they floored in the Texans game. And there were 16 days of pretty much inactivity in between. That's on the coaches and the players for not staying self-motivated. Let's see what the Ravens do when they come out after a 3-week rest.
3 week, really.
Let's see what they do.
Yeah.
And on cue, and Jason, I'll let you address this one first, said Watson is 8-4 as the starter, 4-1 this year, wins over stats.
Get out of here with the.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
Yeah. I never cared. The win-loss record, it's misleading. It's misleading to make it seem like, wow, he's won all these games. A lot of those games were won in spite of him. Let's keep it real. I didn't, win-loss record, especially in a small sample size. When we looked at, like, P.J. Walker's got a winning record. Come on, the guy's trash.
Well, hell, the Colts win officially goes on Deshaun Watson's record.
So he's really 5-1.
And he was horrible in that. I mean, he only played 1 or 2 series.
1 for 5.
Baker got a win one time that he played one play, I think. So
yeah, it's just like in baseball. A guy gets a vulture win when he comes in and pitches 1 inning and it's scoreless game.
Listen.
He comes in the 9th, gets 3 outs, and your team scores 1 run in the bottom of the 9th, you win.
See, listen, I get it. That guy thought, like I did, that Deshaun Watson was a great trade and he was going to be a superstar.
And he's going to do whatever
he can. And now he's going to con himself into
Yes.
believing it's not as bad. Listen, he hasn't been P.J. Walker. Nobody thinks that Deshaun Watson, when he's played, has not been the worst quarterback. This year, he was okay.
Where was his
But we
where's his
expected him
QBR?
to be great.
Where is it?
You don't want to know.
No, I do want to know.
Where is what?
Where's his QBR? Where does he rank, Deshaun Watson? It's
now.
an aggregate of all the stats put into a box. It's not the end-all, be-all.
If you look at,
but it's a stat. What is it?
I don't know where his QBR was. His PFF grade was, I think, 17th or
I look at
18th.
QBR more than PFF. QBR, at least with QBR, there is a science to that. There's a formula. With PFF, it's so objective.
I don't agree.
There's no objectivity to QBR.
Well, but
it's
not,
numbers
yes,
crunched
but there
and
needs
put into
to be
a
some
formula.
objectivity because they count all interceptions equal
You're
when they're
right.
not.
You're right.
When they're not.
But with PFF, it's way more objective.
I don't know that.
Because they're trying to tell you that they know what the play was and what the assignment was, when that's just absurd. There's no way they could. So what is his PFF or his QBR rank?
24th.
Okay. And you know what? I think that's about
That's
fair.
actually not far from where his PFF grade was. I think he was 18th in PFF.
Okay,
grade.
and you know what? I would say he is not in the top half of quarterbacks.
No, not right
but
now.
But he's towards the top end of the second half.
We expected him to be a top 5 quarterback. He's played nowhere close to that level. That's it. There's no argument against that.
All right, well, Jonathan's still not here, so let me do one of our last
Let's
fan
bring him
votes.
on another time.
Let me ask you this. Did you confirm that the time is East Coast?
Yeah, he texted me and said he was logging in a second ago. So.
Oh, okay.
At this
sure
point, you should bring him on another time, especially when G's here, so he can really.
Yeah, well, like I said, if he hops on in a sec, if not, we'll talk about tonight. But I got to do one FanDuel read regardless. The NFL regular season's wrapping up. There's still time to get in on the action with FanDuel, which is America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed just by placing a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose, and the app is easy to use, and there are so many different ways to bet, including live same-game parlays. You can find bets in the new Explorer tab. You can make a parlay in the Parlay Hub, which is the best and most popular way to find parlays, and so much more. So make sure you visit FanDuel.com/UCSS to make your first bet a layup. FanDuel, an official partner of the NFL. And with that, we have Jonathan Wells, who joined us during that ad read. And he told me he was still had to freshen up after a long celebration this weekend, Jonathan.
Talk your game, man. The Texans humiliated the Browns.
Man, it was just good day for us, man. We got every bounce we needed. Like I told y'all, Joe Flacco was going to throw me a couple of them things that he delivered. Salute to Joe Flacco. Big shout out to him. Everything was it went perfect for us, man. CJ played flawless, obviously. Didn't turn the football over, just didn't try to force the ball. We couldn't have wrote it up any better, man. There's not too much to say about it. It was just a thorough whipping of you boys, man. So
I have a question for you.
God.
Very pointed question. Are the Texans pumping in artificial crowd sound, yes or no?
Nah, they got going in there.
I don't know about that.
A lot of empty seats for all that noise.
There was a lot of empty seats in that middle row and that top. And the lower bowl was full, but the middle and the top, Zach Jackson, who I work with the Athletic, looked at each other like, it's awfully loud in here for as many seats as are open. I don't know.
This is what y'all resort to after taking that type of y'all gonna get me on here and talk to me about fake sound in the stadium.
We sound like Ohio State fans after Michigan beat us.
Yeah, that's true. Hey, Jonathan, you could listen. Certainly, everybody thought the Texans could. We picked the Browns to win, but certainly, like, nobody's stunned that the Texans win the game. What I am stunned about is how they won the game. That the Browns' defense was absolutely pathetic in this game. I never saw that coming. Are you surprised by that? How badly they played?
I mean, obviously, I thought it would be a much closer game. I'm not going to sit here like I thought we were going to blow these guys out. But I also figured that we could get some room in the running game, like I talked about. Singletary did just what he needed to do, broke it just enough long runs for us to take a little bit of pressure off of CJ. And then once we get our play-action game going, we've been doing that to everybody this year. So it's not just y'all. I figured that we could protect y'all, which we figured we could. The first game, Myles Garrett didn't have a sack, I don't believe. So we figured we might be able to protect y'all. But Coach Slowett, give shout out to the offensive coordinator, man. He called a beautiful game.
He did.
Continuously moved. He moved CJ around the pocket, got him out on the outside. It was just beautiful all the way around the board, man. So it doesn't surprise me. We've been doing that to a lot of defenses this year.
Assuming if the Bills win tonight, then the Ravens will, or this afternoon, then the Texans will play the Ravens. If the Steelers somehow pull the upset, then the Texans will play Kansas City. Do you think one of those two teams is a better matchup for the Texans, or are they both equally tough?
I think they're both equally tough. Baltimore may have the better team record-wise, but Kansas City also has Patrick Mahomes. So at the end of the day, he's always he can always pull it out at the end. We know what Patrick does. So either one of these teams, we just got to be ready to go on the road for a tough challenge. Both of the places are going to be extremely cold. The weather's going to play a factor. So that's what the only thing that kind of worries me right now is we've been playing inside for the last couple of weeks.
Yep.
Can we go out there in a game where it's 15, 10 degrees, it's snowing, and still put on the type of performances we've been doing? That's a little bit of a concern of mine right now.
Well, this will help. CJ's used to playing in cold weather.
That's why I was going with that.
And Nico Collins played at Michigan, so he's used to it. So that'll help. Let me ask you this. Take us inside the mindset of a collective team. And I know that's really difficult to do. But what we're having a hard time getting our minds around today is only one guy showed up to play, and that was JOK. Everyone else looked like they were woken up an hour before the game and told that they're going to play a playoff game in 1 hour. How do you explain an entire team that was on this incredible magic carpet ride all showing up and being completely flat?
It goes back to what I said to you guys. I think taking that week off always hurts the team when they do that. Wow. When you are in a rhythm, you're playing great football, the last thing you want to do is not get any game reps for damn near 2 weeks. I think that plays a major role, and I'm hoping we get Baltimore, and it may play a role in that game as well because they've been sitting down for a couple of weeks as well. I think that always just hurts you, man. I'm a rhythm guy. I don't like to miss practice. I don't like to miss nothing. I like to keep my rhythm and just go into the game with how I've been rolling.
By
the way, it's the Ravens are going to the Texans are going to play on Saturday either way, because the Bills-Steelers winner has to play Sunday because they're playing Monday. Yeah. So we know that the Texans are going to play Saturday. I just looked up. It's 5 days away. It could change. I looked at the forecast for Saturday. Pretty decent difference between Baltimore and, because Baltimore's supposed to be like 30 degrees, which is cold but not terrible.
Kansas City's
supposed to be like 14 degrees on Saturday. So that's a pretty big difference.
It is.
So we'll see.
Yeah, that makes a big difference.
I'm rooting for the Texans, man. I now that they beat the Browns, I mean, I hate the Ravens and I hate I don't hate the Chiefs, but I'm okay with the Bills. But I'm going to root for the Texans. I like CJ Stroud. I'm going to root for them.
Well,
so
we
good luck,
appreciate
John.
it. We need all the love we could get. My man G. Bush, he ducking me today. What's going on?
He's got the Browns flu. You know what? So his gimmick on the show is he always says he's the leader of the Kool-Aid Mafia. And he's been drinking the Kool-Aid and the Kool-Aid and the Kool-Aid. And I've been telling him all year, you do understand that everybody that drank the Kool-Aid dies in the end.
And coincidentally, he's sick today. Fortunately, he's not dead, but he's sick.
Yeah, but his stomach hurts. He drank some bad Kool-Aid.
Too much Kool-Aid.
I mean, that will...
Hey, I'm going to have to call and check on my guy. I had to check him out, man.
Please do, and give him our best. Jonathan, congratulations to you. Good luck to your team in the next round, and we loved having you on. You bring great energy to the show, so thank you, Jonathan.
Thanks,
Appreciate
man.
it, fellas. Y'all have a good one, man.
Yeah.
He's a good guy.
It's nice and warm behind him. He's got a pool
Yeah,
back
he's
there.
got a pool. It's 75 degrees.
Yeah.
And here we are in the doldrums of winter. If I woke up this morning, it was 1 degree.
It's brutal.
Yeah, my
1
car said,
degree.
my car said 7 on the drive in.
Well, it warmed up to 4 by the time I left the house.
Warmed up.
Yeah, I was like,
Heat
well, it's a
wave.
heat wave, and the sun's out. So
We'll
that's
talk
good.
about tonight's games on overtime. We'll see you.
Bye-bye.
Peace. What a dud.